All right, everybody, we are here. We are streaming. It is a Thursday night, and hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to the show, and it's great to be back. Sorry that we have to do a late one this week, but couldn't be helped. I had to get out and do some recording of a parade. So, welcome to the show. And I just realized that I've got a little bit of a problem with the microphone. It's going to make a bit of noise, so I'm going to take a second and adjust that to try to keep my keyboard from being a problem. Hopefully, everybody can hear me just fine. Looks good on camera, so that's looking good. And no one is on yet. Normally we got people just bouncing right in. So I don't know if we've not done a good job of announcing it today. Hey, someone's on. How's it going? Good evening. Make sure to jump in the chat and say hello, because I don't know who's here otherwise. And it's Thursday night. It's 7 o'clock. It's really late on the East Coast. That's why I don't like doing these this late, but I just could not get here sooner this week. It is April. Last week I was in Belize, hence the Belize hat. I always get a new hat wherever I go. 2 weeks ago when we did the live stream, I was on the live stream, doing the live stream when it came up that I had to go to Belize. So I went to Belize, and now this is the first live stream since I've been back. So that was very cool. I feel like the camera's a little bit on the high side. No, maybe it's okay. I don't know. Maybe it's my imagination. How is everyone doing this week? Show has been busy, which is good. Haven't had a lot of chance to interact with everyone though, so I'm kind of feeling out of the loop on my own channel. What's been going on? Nobody. Live chat is getting going. Luke is on. Greetings from Fat Point, Florida. Is that its real name? Fat Point? It's a point. How can it be fat? I'm just drinking water this week. I've been running around all day, no time to. And Leo is on. Hello from Naples, Florida. Everyone's on from Florida, which is East Coast. You guys are up late on a Thursday night. I mean, it's not late, but jumping on the live stream late on a Thursday night is dedication. Thank you for coming on. TJ's on. Scott, hey Scott from Granada, still looking for Alfredo sauce. We had Alfredo for dinner minutes ago. The only one I know, TJ, is at Price Mart in Managua. But there's a Price Mart on the Messiah Road. So from Granada, just head into Managua. We don't go all the way into Managua. Just on the left there, near the Walmart, is a Price Mart. Stop in there, and they have the Bertolli's or whatever Alfredo sauce in a 2-pack. It's the same one you buy in the U.S. It's not the fanciest, but it's pretty good. But I don't know anyone else who sells it. They don't have it at La Colonia. I'm not surprised they don't have it at La Union. So that's where we get it. But you get it in 2-packs up there. The price is good. So, not a problem. I'm going to jump up real quick and adjust this camera just slightly. It's too high, too far. We're going to tweak it just a little bit. It's really far for me to get to the camera. All right. Is that a little bit better? That's a little bit better. Now I can slouch without being like off the camera, and it's a little bit closer. Now I'm like, boom, here we are. I'm actually sitting back away from my desk, and the camera's on the far side of the desk. So it's a bit of distance. I wish I had like a really long handle so I could like adjust it from here, or remote, I suppose. Jason says hello from Esteli. Hey, people in Esteli, that's awesome. I should tell people, estoy en vivo. And I'll tell someone in Esteli, that's what made me. How is life in Esteli? Are you just vacationing or do you live up there? And should I know? Do I just not know? I should know. See if we can get a couple people to jump on. We're up to 12 people already, so people are jumping on, which is pretty awesome. What have you guys been up to this week? What do you got going on? It is April here, so it is hot. This is the hottest month of the year, and the last couple of weeks have been, the hottest. And it's not that bad. I actually have a video coming out You missed Radio Shack. Did Radio Shack close? Or you just missed because you're not here? Because we have Radio Shacks everywhere. Last I knew, I don't go shopping at Radio Shack, so I assume it's still there. How is the weather in Esteli? Oh, live. I thought you were saying it's live in Esteli. Yeah, the weather's live every day. Oh, you live in Esteli. Now I understand. Ah, cool. Very cool. Met you a few times in Leon. Oh, okay. Did I know you were from Esteli? It's so hard to keep track of where everyone is. And who everyone is when they're online. That's the thing that's really tough, is like remembering and matching the names. Because for me, it says Jason. That's it. That's all I get. So, Summer Life 24, it's also really far. The screen's really blurry because I'm old. Hi, Scott. We'll be in Leon in May. What's a good hotel to stay in? Oh, wait. It closed years ago? I'm going to come back to you, Summer. Leo, the Radio Shack closed years ago? It can only have been so many years ago because I've been shopping there not that long ago. It's part of Curacao. So is there really no... I guess I can't actually remember having seen a Radio Shack recently, but I really feel like it's there. I'm going to have to check. How many years ago do you think it closed? Because I definitely have been shopping within the last 2 years. Radio Shack's still open in Arcadia, Florida. Here, last I knew, Radio Shack is huge in Nicaragua. Oh, here in the USA. Oh, no, they're big here. Radio Shack's everywhere here. We have Radio Shack stuff everywhere. Okay, so this is back to Summer Life 24. What's a good hotel to stay in Leon? Well, it really depends what you're looking for, obviously, because if you're a backpacker, you're going to look for one thing. If you're, on an American budget, you're going to look for something else. TJ, I'll tell you in a second. But the La Perla this is in Leon is really, really nice, and El Convento is really nice. And I think there's Recoleccion. I don't know much about it, but I think that they have a decent hotel. They're owned by El Convento. So El Convento is like the big one. Definitely check those out. Really nice hotels. Leon's not a big hotel town, so you're very limited as to options of hotel, just where you can stay and stuff. Unfortunately, that's one thing I don't like about Leon. I mean, we have hotels, right? But it would be nice if we had more infrastructure for that. But that would lead to more tourists, and I'm not exactly looking for more tourists. So it could be a double-edged sword, right? So I would like if there were more hotels and more hotel services in town, but not all the tourists that comes with him. He says as he promotes Leon a ton and causes tons of tourists to come here. So maybe creating my own problems. I just have to grab this link right here. TJ, I don't know what you're looking for, but this is where I stay in Matagalpa. That's the Vizcaino, which is the Basque Hotel. There's one right here in Leon, right by me in Sutiava, of all places. It's absolutely crazy. But then, yeah, Selva Negra is near. If you want to be in like the Matagalpa area, Selva Negra is supposed to be really nice, but it's not like a hotel, and it's not actually in Matagalpa. But for a hotel like in Matagalpa, where I walk to restaurants, walk to clubs, go shopping, do the city stuff, there may be nicer ones. I'm not making any sales pitch for the Vizcaino. I know the Vizcaino from Leon. I know that they're nice here. I know that they're nice there. I've been happy with them. So that's what I can say. Okay, great. Planning also to eat at your hotel on the beach and have dinner. Actually, I don't have a hotel on the beach anymore. The hotel is still there though, but we are no longer managing the hotel. We decided that it was going in a different direction of being a hostel, which is fantastic for them, but we're not hostel people, and so it just no longer was a match for us in any meaningful way, and so it is now the ultimate party hostel on the beach. They have party, like they do Tuesday Booze Day. They're trying to compete with Sunday Fun Day in San Juan del Sur, and are actually doing so. Like, it's super cool. Hundreds of people pack in on Tuesday nights. Monday night is trivia night. They've got live music. It's a big backpacker party, but it's not our vibe. So we didn't feel that we were contributing in any meaningful way. But if you are looking for food on the beach and you're looking for something fancy, definitely stop by Desperados. If you're looking for something that is fancy and steaks and salmon and like quiet dinner on the beach with sunsets, that is the place to eat. I am going back and reading. Larry says it's like a breath of fresh air having you back live. Thanks, Larry. It's fun to do these. I almost forgot that we had been doing them. I had, missed quite a bit and then tried coming back and then had to be in Belize and now we're getting the vibe back and I've been catching up on the show too. I did like 5 episodes today. It's been a show day. Let me tell you, I did like episodes where I'm in like the garden and just talking, as you know. But I also went out and filmed the parade. They just call it the April Parade. That was going on today. So I got some cool footage of that. I got a little bit of footage the other day, but it's going to be in the episode coming up in the next few days, of the municipal buses here. Desperados is no in the book. Now, okay. I'm like, what book says no? I have no idea what you're talking about. You reach the owner of what? What was I saying? I managed to film the municipal buses because people have been asking, because we have these brand new, so here we don't have the Chinese buses. For those who don't know, there is 60 new Russian buses here in Leon and in Managua, and then throughout the country there's 500 new Chinese buses, and they're like big news here, and people are talking about them all the time. And Hotel Libano is right in Central Park and is budget friendly in Leon. I don't know them. Thanks, Larry. So a lot of people are like really excited because these buses are like, it's a big deal here. We're a public transportation country, and we're a poor country. So getting really good, modern, because our old buses were just terrible, transportation is a big deal. So everybody's been very excited about it. And a lot of people on the channel have asked me to film them, and I've kind of walked by the buses and shown the camera in as I walked by. But I actually went for a ride and get the pricing and took video of actually getting on the bus and waving down the bus and riding the bus. And it's super easy and super cheap. And the buses are very nice. I was very impressed by how nice the buses were. So it's very, very cool. Patricia says, hello, listening in while cooking poodle food. That's awesome. You need to scroll up to see my conversation. Oh, did I miss something, Larry? Where did you? It may have disappeared for me. No, Larry, it said a breath of fresh air having me back. And then you said reach the owner wants 55,000. That is it. That's all I have from you. I don't know where it went to. That's very strange. You'd think I, of all people, would be able to see your chat. But apparently you had a secret chat without me. Now I feel left out. Poodle food. That's cool. We used to, we used to cook, my wife and I. I say we used to cook. My wife used to cook for the dog when we had a Boston Terrier back in 2005 to 2012. And he was our baby, and he had blood issues. He had a real severe blood condition, and we had to cook for him. And so we did for a very long time, and he was very happy with that. He loved it. And sometimes my dad would even steal the dog's food because it was, we're vegetarians, so he never liked the food we were eating. And he'd be like, the dog's food has meat. This looks delicious. And of course, it was really high quality meat. So the dog did really well, so my dad would steal it sometimes when he visited. But neither of my dogs now like when we cook for them. We have tried. We're like, we love our dogs. We're going to cook for them. And they're just like, no, we want your food or we want our regular kibble. And that is it. It's the only thing they care about. And so they'll eat what we're eating as much as they can. And then they're perfectly happy with like relatively generic price mark kibble, which is, it's good kibble. But they're weird dogs in that regard. I have no idea why they don't like real meat cooked. They will eat bones off the street. People will give them loads and loads of bones, and they would definitely eat those no problem and enjoy them very much. So I really have no idea why they didn't like when we cooked for them. I'm just looking at a map trying to find that hotel that Jason mentioned, and of course I'm just scrolling around. I didn't actually search on it. So I don't know. I don't know where it is. What school online for the kids do you use? So we use Power Homeschool primarily. We use a number of things. So it's not like we use just one thing and they just do an online school. They do online classes. So I know that sounds like the same thing, but one is individual classes that we assemble into a school, and the other is a fully packaged school. So they do online classes, most of them through Power Homeschool. That is their key one, but we mix and match. And for example, this year, my eldest Liesel, who is, I only have one Liesel, but my eldest, whose name is Liesel, it'd be funny if I had Liesel 1 and Liesel 2. Like, we just really like the name, we decided to use it again. And she doesn't want to do traditional English classes. She was really excited about doing cinema studies. So we are doing that as like an independent study. So she's not doing it online with that. We are doing it directly together. But that's what we do for most things, Power Homeschool. I think they like their Spanish through there, but they also are going to take some local Spanish classes too. We really want them to get steeped in that for obvious reasons. Summer says, do you still have the relocation service for people planning to live in Nicaragua? I do. So we do relocation services. What we don't do is real estate services of any sort. We discovered that it's just very problematic to actually do anything real estate related. Even though we're not doing like real estate agent services, we would do like introductions. We did a bunch of, but Nicaragua has some really weird laws around the introduction. It has nothing to do with real estate. It has to do with introducing people, and it was something that comes up during real estate, and it just brings on a lot of liability and a lot of complexity, and it's an area we're not involved in. So relocation, yes. Specifically, the stuff that we're kind of focused on is helping with move-in, helping with shopping, helping with getting services. Like, oh, you need help getting your internet, you need that stuff. And we're really, we don't do this very often, but we really focused on what we really love doing is doing tours and stuff. Leo, I'll get to you. Like I've had Earl, for example. I'm sure he doesn't mind me telling. He and his wife came down, and we picked them up. Marcella from my team and we picked them up, and we took them on a multi-day tour around the country. We worked ahead of time, came up with some itinerary of this are the things that they're interested in. These are the things they needed to investigate. These are the things they had to look at, like real specifically. Here's things that we thought they should see, things that they thought they should see, and we kind of made a road trip, and we took them on a tour for just a few days to a couple different areas, and showed them, so we were able to kind of be tour guides in a relocation way. Rather than tour guides in a tourist way, right? Tourist way is like, this volcano is famous for erupting in 1942, and now it's tourist attraction or whatever. And over here is this restaurant. But instead, we're doing like, here's what this should cost. Here's how you would find a house. Here's who you would talk to here. Here's what this neighborhood would be like. Here's what the travel time is to a grocery store. Here's what the travel time is to a city. Here's where your airport is. Here's what the logistics of life would be like in many different places. And in their case, they were looking at beaches over a very large area, which is very difficult. But it could be like just looking at different barrios within a city, or looking at a couple different cities, or comparing beach to city, or any number of things. So a wide range of things, and we're certainly want to advise on like real estate and stuff. Like, oh, you should think about renting something of this type or this style, this part of the city. But actually showing houses, even not as an agent, just going with you, getting access and showing you the house, and potentially negotiating does cause some problems. If you need anything with negotiations, though, we do have a lawyer that we can hand you off to, and they can handle those things. The lawyer has protections and stuff. Larry says, I found the owner of the beach road house across from Sol de Plata. The owner wants $55,000, not the 28 to 35 you were told. Not, from Puesta del Sol, you mean, Larry? 55 they're asking. Last we were told was 35, and no one has even made an offer. No, the place is not worth 55 at all. Leo, I'm looking into Excelis Academy. So we used Excelis before Power Homeschool. I think we still do one or two things from them. They are not bad. You'd have to ask my kids or my wife as to the exact details of why they liked or didn't like it, why they switched, or whatever. Does Power Homeschool count as school once you have your residency? I heard Nicaragua technically doesn't allow homeschooling. That is correct. They technically don't allow homeschooling. They officially are definitely not going to even talk to you about it. Like, that's not... Remember, residency is not citizenship. I am unaware. There's two Panipas Jason, but I can guess which one it is. Yeah. Contact me via email, Summer. Perfect. I have never heard of anyone needing to do anything for schooling combined with residency. That does not mean that no one has ever been given a hassle about that. We anticipate no problems. Remember that residency is a very soft thing. And for example, just because we have residency in Nicaragua doesn't mean we're in Nicaragua. So, and we also have residency in Texas. So just because you get residency in Nicaragua does not affect your Texas residency or vice versa. You can be resident in as many places as you want. None of them talk to each other. It's not an official thing like citizenship. So if you are a citizen of Nicaragua, certainly you have to do school. And I have friends with kids who go through some of this. We've talked about homeschool. And I believe in most cases, if you want to do homeschool, it's just a matter of finding the right people and going through the right processes. This is Nicaragua, right? We don't have, like the U.S., where if the U.S., which doesn't do this, right? The U.S. is like very pro homeschool, but if the U.S. was to be like there's no homeschool, it would be a rule, right? No homeschool. Okay, how do I get around that? What do you mean? You can't. It's a rule, right? And that would be the end of it. And in Nicaragua, when they say you have to do school, you say, okay, yes, I have to do school, but it's not like I'm trying to do something stupid. I'm trying to do this really good thing, and here's what I'm trying to do. How do I do that, right? And they will say, well, maybe if we do this, maybe if we do that, maybe contact this school and have them approve it, maybe work with this teacher and have them approve it, maybe create a school, right? So one of the things you have to do in Texas is you're basically given complete freedom to do homeschool. It's great, but one of the little things that they like made us do, I don't know if they always do this, they made us form a school. So we have a school. So my kids go to school, right? And it's a Texas, like, accredited school, essentially. But it's very like, you just create it. And so if Nicaragua talks to us and says, which they won't, they will never talk to us. But if they were to and say, oh, your kids have to go to school, we say they've always gone to school. Where do they go to school? In Texas? Well, where in Texas? Edelweiss Academy. Oh, how many other people go there? None, just them. They're never going to ask that, right? But that's how it works, right? Is that it is an official school in the state of Texas. And so there's so many paths that you would have as a resident to deal with schooling issues, that if you want to homeschool and you want to be a resident and you overlap with the two at the same time, and on the incredibly off chance that they decide to try to pursue a requirement for schooling for a resident. I don't believe that requirement exists. I believe it only exists for citizens, and I definitely don't think that they're enforcing it for residents who are at least attempting to do something for school. I think you would have a lot of paths to argue or finesse the system to get that approved. As with everything in Nicaragua, right, it's easy to say, well, I checked the rules and I'm not supposed to do this thing or that thing. And I realize that the drone thing, I then say, there's no exception to this. And everybody's like, yeah, there's a process. No, there's not. Right? There's a process for submitting paperwork. It is not a process for being approved. But for normal things, for normal like life things, especially if you're trying to do something sensible, I realize drones are sensible in most cases. There's always a way to make it happen. But it's always a matter of convincing the right people, of talking to the right people, going through the right steps, making it happen. So don't think that those things are going to be hard and fast rules that you can't work around. But be aware that just everything in life in Nicaragua is a little bit of a conversation and making it happen. Contact via email. Perfect. Hot Dog Water. Love your vids, man. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. Do I have WhatsApp? I do have WhatsApp. Send me an email and I can connect you on WhatsApp. Luke says, how would I research specific medication used by Nika's health system? I assume, Luke, you're asking about the public health system. I honestly don't know. I would say if you really want to know things, probably the easiest thing to do is just hire a doctor to do any research that you want. But of course, if you're hiring a doctor to do that research, it seems likely you wouldn't use the public health system, you use the private one, in which case you would just do the private and tell them what you want for medication, right? So my email is on every video except the live ones in the comments, or not in the comments, but in the show notes. Just scroll down. It's always there. Or if you go to the YouTube page, it's always there, but I put it in the chat for you. Of course, I got it wrong. Relocation, Nicaragua. Is that right? Did I spell it right? Now I'm second guessing my own spelling of things. Let's see if I can find where it's written somewhere that someone wrote to me so I can see what my own email is. Anyway, it's info@relocationnicaragua.com. However that's spelled. Spell that. But yeah, for medications by the health system, I'm sure they have a list of the ones that they keep inside the hospitals that they're able to hand out. That makes sense. But as far as what's available to you is, kind of the sky is the limit. They're very, very open to your participation in your healthcare here. So the only time that you're really dealing with the public health for medications is basically when you're looking for one, doctor's advice, obviously, but also when you are looking to get free medication and you're hoping that the hospital is going to provide it to you, then you would get it through the public health system. Otherwise, you would just go to any pharmacy and just buy what you want. Right, if you know what you want, you don't even have to go to a doctor in 99% of cases. There's a few controlled things you would need to see through a doctor, but it's very rare, not for normal things. You just go and buy the things that you want if you know what you need. If you need a doctor to guide you, which is recommended, of course, then you can hire a private doctor, you can go to a clinic, you can go to the public health, and you can tell the public healthcare system, hey, I would like... I would like this medication. Tell me, and they'll give you the guidance on that medication. They may not give you the medication. Oh, we don't have that, but they'll certainly help you, know what to go get, and then you can go get it yourself. Yeah, Patricia says, don't go asking for a rabies vaccine. Inside joke for those who have watched the channel long enough. Larry asks, is the pool at Desperados open to restaurant clients? It is not, and it never will be. The pool is part of the apartments that are there, not part of the restaurant space. So it's unfortunately never going to be restaurant. It's kind of weird to have a pool in a restaurant, I think. So it's neat because it has a pool bar, but it's also weird to go to a kind of a steak and seafood restaurant and then be like, I'm going to take a dip in the pool. Feeling a bit dehydrated today. It's just been a lot of running around. Haven't had a lot of time to just kind of sit back and relax. But it's been a good day. Like I didn't have a lot of stuff going on, so I was able to be super productive for the day. So I'm feeling really good about it, and doing the live stream, feel good about that. It's so nice to be back. I miss doing these. It is it's very cool. I'm also in the background paying attention to my my download of all my stuff for Jellyfin. If anyone hasn't checked out Jellyfin yet, if you're looking for a fun project at home and you like movies or TV shows or whatever, check out Jellyfin. There's a lot of fun to be had with that system. Definitely a hobby project that will end up consuming a lot of your time if you end up liking it, but I've been playing with that a bit and it has been very fun. Boy, what else do we have going on? I feel like I haven't talked to you guys in a while. Well, I haven't. But, so Belize was super cool. Got the hat, right? That's why I go to new countries, to get new hats. This one's a little bit like an American beer company, right? Am I crazy? This is like an American beer hat you'd wear playing golf, but it's the national beer of Belize, which is funny. Belize is so small. 450,000 people spread out over, the size of, I don't know, like Rhode Island probably, but it's so sparsely populated. Even the big city is so empty. It's nuts. Basically, the whole country is only the size of the city of Leon, not even the departamento of Leon. From a population perspective, what an interesting place Belize is for sure. But that was a really cool trip, and I got to hang out in Guatemala City a little bit, which is my favorite city in the world. So I was really happy even to get a little bit of time in Guatemala City, and can't wait to get back there. And I got to hang out a little bit in San Salvador Airport, which is the nicest airport in the region by far. Like, that is a fantastic airport. If you're looking at places and you're like, I don't know where I want to fly through, San Salvador is the place to fly through. It is great restaurants, easy to get around. It has a little bit of extra security, so that can slow you down a little bit. But overall, that was just such a fantastic airport to have to deal with. I'm glad that that's a local airport. I wish it was my local airport that I would fly in and out of. I do like having Managua as my local airport because it is so small. I mean, you could get in 10 minutes before your flight and your chances of making it are high. Like, it's silly how small it is, but San Salvador is so well connected and so just nice. Like, I was really, really happy with that. No, Leo, I did not feel the quake. It's a 5.5. That hit on the Costa Rican border. So first of all, 5.5 you would feel, but it's not a big quake, but you would normally feel it. But it is thanks for the answer on the pool. Was planning a $5,000 party there. Guess I will look elsewhere. I don't know what you would do with the pool for a $5,000 party. It is a really small pool. It does have 4 seats in it, but it's quite small. The quake happened at about 4.5 hours away over the border in Costa Rica. Just barely over the border, but it's very, very far south. So feeling it all the way up here would be pretty surprising. Now, if we got like a 7, we would have felt that up here. A 6.5 maybe, but a 5.5. That'd be hard to go that far. What are you planning those trips to the East Coast region? It's way too far. Like, I drive a little bit around the city with my expired license because it's only expired. Like, it's not like I don't have a license. It's just I need a new one printed. But I'm not going to go any distance. I'm not going to push my luck. Here in the city, I can make a call. Be like, guys, I live here. Like, and someone from the police will be like, we know him. And then they'll come yell at me and maybe I'll be in trouble, but I won't be like, trouble, right? But if I start venturing out, I risk getting in trouble. So I don't want to do that. I'm going to fly to Houston and get a new license. My wife's going to come up with me. Hers expires in several weeks, so she's going to come up, like several, but she's going to come up with me, and we'll get them renewed, and then I'll head out to the coast once we have that. Any new status updates on the Volcano Messiah tours open up yet? Honestly, I don't know about the tours. I guarantee not. It's only been 48 hours, 72 hours since the latest round of news. They're a little bit worried about it. But no, other than there was that little bit of warning that they gave 2 or 3 days ago, we haven't heard anything. Really, Messiah erupts daily. Like, it never stops. So a little bit of extra rumbling, a little bit of things falling, a little bit of things like none of that's very newsworthy here. No one really stops and thinks about it very much. So they're just kind of like, Jillian's on. Hey there. Jillian is my neighbor these days. Did I catch up with everyone? I think so. And then Patricia says, what's so great about Guatemala City? Well, the answer there is very easy. Everything. Guatemala City is fantastic. I love it. So for those who don't know, my favorite cities in the world are Rome, Madrid, and Guatemala City. So I've not lived in any of them. I did used to have an office in Madrid, so I've worked in Madrid. I've spent a bit of time in Rome and a little bit in Guatemala City. Guatemala City is very special. It is, let's see, a number of things. One, it is enormous. It is the population of the entire country of Nicaragua in a single city. I'm a big city guy. It's the only Central American super large city. So I love Central America. I love big cities. Guatemala City is unique in how it puts all of that together, right? So that would be very cool. Guatemala City is up in the mountains, so it's very cool weather, but it's not cold. So it has just the right weather where, like, do you feel like being outside in a city and enjoying the city parks and walking around the city and just exploring everywhere on foot or by bicycle, and you just want to be outside all the time, but in a city that has fresh air and beautiful trees and just... That's Guatemala City. It's exactly the temperature, so you don't need a jacket, but you can walk outside all the time. Like, it's amazing. Tall, big, beautiful buildings, beautiful apartments, beautiful hotels, museums, a beautiful zoo. I'm not a big fan of airports downtown, but it does have an airport right in the dead center of town, and it's really well managed so that you can walk out of the airport and go do anything you want in the city in minutes and just get right back to the airport. It's really interesting. I don't think I would have made that choice if I was designing Guatemala City, but since they did it, as someone who may have to come in and out of the airport or has to deal with it when I'm there, it's pretty fantastic. It has Uber, and it's cheap and safe. It has really interesting zonas or neighborhoods. This replaces barrios here in Nicaragua. So you can move between all these numerous zonas, and each one has its own architecture and yes, it is still cold in the winter, but it's not cold in the winter. It's just chilly. Like Zona 10 and Zona 16 and Zona 4, they have some similarities, but they also have unique character. You have a city that's big enough that you have these local neighborhoods, but it's also really easy to move between the zonas and get these different experiences. You have a big enough city where you have all this huge amount of sorry for the hiccups now. Really extensive restaurant and shopping selection, so you feel like you're in a New York City or Los Angeles. You just have access to everything, but you don't have tourists. This is the best part, is that it is absolutely off the tourist path, and everyone warns people about it. Don't go to Guatemala City. Go to Guatemala. Guatemala's amazing. Don't go to Guatemala City. And it's this well-kept secret that all these influencer, people who are just reading guidebooks, and they're all reading some old guidebook that one person wrote, right? I don't know if you guys know this, like Lonely Planet. They don't actually go and research anything. A number of years ago, 10 years ago, they sent someone who passed through Nicaragua, and what do? They spend weeks, months, I have no idea, but it's not very much time. They do a cursory run through. They barely stop places. They'll bop from place to place, and this is in the old days. I don't know if they still do. They would do a little bit, survey a couple places, and then act like they had some knowledge of the region. They have no actual deep knowledge whatsoever. It's super silly. And then they write this guidebook that's supposed to be a guide, but 50% of my audience has more experience in any place that they go in Nicaragua than the people who wrote the guidebook. So it's a really weird thing. If you have really good guidebook people, what's his name that does the ones in Europe? Rick Steves, who does the guidebooks in Europe. He has a team who makes these books, and they live there, and they do it full time. But Lonely Planet doesn't do that, and none of them do, right? If you did, this is a small country. If you had people doing guidebooks, we would know them, right? You would have to, because they'd be going to our restaurants, they'd be going to our hotels. We would have our friends who have hotels would have them. Everybody would know them. It's a small community. So we know that they don't exist. And when one passed through, everybody has the stories of them because it was really well known. So they know how long ago Lonely Planet did their research. And that's why Lonely Planet and TripAdvisor and a whole bunch of different things all have information and recommend that you go to places that are out of business, don't even exist anymore, there's not even a building, are terrible places that make no sense, claim places that are going out of business are the busiest things in the country. Everything's wrong because no one's updating it, no one's looking at it, no one's coming to check, and that's not the plan. So I'm not sure where I was going with that, but that's the problem with guidebooks and why they don't make very much sense. So at some point, if someone writing for something like Lonely Planet 20 years ago said, Guatemala City's boring or dangerous or shouldn't be wasted your time with, everybody's just going to repeat that for decades to come. And if Guatemala City suddenly became painted with gold and there were, bands playing in the street every 5 minutes and all the food was free, no one would know because they would never update their guidebooks. And so the information would just steer everyone away from the city. And then what most YouTube influencers are doing is just reading these guidebooks and being like, okay, what am I supposed to do? I have to go to Santorini. Okay, so they fly to Santorini, the island in Greece, and they do their Instagram photos and they say, this is the best vacation spot ever. And little do you know that if you're actually going to Greece, the last place you want to go is Santorini. Where you want to go is Crete, which is one island to the south and absolutely fantastic and not full of tourists and cheap and full of culture. And Santorini is super expensive. There's no culture because there's no one who lives there from Greece. It's all just Western European and American tourists who've taken over the entire place. And the whole thing is just wall-to-wall people taking selfies. So that's why I think Guatemala City stays off the radar. Everyone says, go to Antigua. And of course, Antigua's nice, But I can tell you it's not very interesting. I live in Leon. It's just a cold Leon, which is nice. Like, that's cool. It's got some nice museums. People are nice, but it's absolutely packed with tourists. So if the thing you want to see is a bunch of Americans looking at things that have been set up for Americans to look at with, cookie cutter souvenir shops, then by all means, Antigua is the place for you. But if you want to see Guatemalans and experience Guatemalan food and Guatemalan culture and Guatemalan everything, Guatemala City is the place to go. David says, hi from Louisville, Kentucky. Hey, how you doing? T-Bone Mar says, hello. What do you do with your 36-year rum? Put it on ice, mix it. You definitely do not mix it. So we have 35-year rum is what we can get here. Normally you get 25, 35. Super hard to come by, but it does exist. That would be straight or on the rocks only. You would never mix that with anything. Patricia did say some time in a Nicaraguan jail could make for some good videos. It could. It has crossed my mind. I don't know if they would let me film. It would be interesting. Larry says, I know Andy from Hobo Traveler. Are you familiar with his site? I don't think I am. Sometimes I know some of the people and don't know their names. Is it YouTube or just a site? And what about him? Should I know? Andy, global citizen over 100 countries, 25 years, Hobo Traveler, your guide to the good life. Does it look familiar? It's coming up. I will tell you in a second. Hobotraveler.com is gone. That is no longer a thing. Oh, but he has, nope, his other site is gone too. Does he still exist? Alexander says, hello, enjoy your videos, really helpful info, interested in moving to Nicaragua. However, I would like to live there for short periods of time. First, do you have any recommendations on monthly rentals? Okay, so that's one of the hardest things. Monthly rentals, just tough. It's hard. Airbnb and hotels are your main options, and that's awful, but it's true. Every city, you may be able to find something here and there, but the short-term rental market, for all intents and purposes, does not exist in Nicaragua. Everybody wants to do the same thing. They want to come in and do short periods of time, and you just can't. When I need an apartment for something, it's like, do I need it enough that we just get it for a year, right? And then we furnish it, and then if you need to move around, it's often easier to just keep furnishings and put them in storage and then take them out when you need it. How large of a cat collection do you have? It's funny. I never thought of myself as a hat guy until I started doing this channel, and because I wear one every day. Because if I don't, you get kind of like this glare, right? Like, I don't know. I don't have a problem being bald. I shaved my head long ago. I've been bald for 21 years. I would say is the last time I had hair 21 years ago, but I shaved it off, and then I went bald after I'd shaved off my hair. So it was relatively graceful. So, whatever. I don't mind being bald, and I don't wear a hat when I'm not on the show, but there's something about the way that it frames my face on camera that I like having the hats, and it's kind of become a thing. So I do beer hats from all over, or rum hats or whatever. I think it's about 30 at this point, so which is not that many, but, and I just lost one of them, literally, I think I left it somewhere. But it was not one of my good ones. It was one of my easily replaceable ones. And then one of my others that I really like, one of my favorites, someone moved it from where I had it, and then someone, this is a super pet peeve, this will be funny, this will be if you watch enough of Scott's things, he's going to mention this, one time and sometime far in the future, we're going to do a trivia for people, because this is all recorded, right? So someone could go back and watch all this and pick up things that they miss. One of Scott's all-time life pet peeves is people leaving the toilet lid up. I hate open toilets. I hate it because dogs go and drink out of it. I hate because animals can fall into it. The story is, when I was a little kid, a fly went into the toilet. I realized that because the toilet was open, a fly drowned in the toilet, and I wouldn't say it traumatized me, but it made me think about that things you don't want can go into the toilet. And I was like, why? Why would you? There's a lid, put it down. I was 5 years old. I was a little kid. And so my entire life has been you always close the toilet. And my parents always close the toilet. So I grew up in a world where that's just what you do. And then when I'm older, I find that there's people who leave it open, and I'm like, but it's an open gross thing in the middle of your house. Why would you do that? And then every single time someone comes to my house and leaves the toilet open, they never stop dropping things in it. Just the other day, caught And I'm like, no one in my family would ever accidentally leave the toilet open. Never. As you can tell. But someone did. And then within like 2 hours, someone had the dog in the toilet. Gross. The shower curtain blew into the toilet. Gross. And then someone, not me, dropped my hat in the toilet. Okay. Which shows one day there was so much that happened that should be enough to realize that for a lifetime, you should always keep the toilet lid down. So when there's a trivia of what are Scott's famous pet peeves, people leaving toilet lids open will come up on that trivia, and this is where you learned about it. Okay, so that is where one of my hats is. All of that to say why you haven't seen that hat recently, but it has been washed. I just haven't seen it after it's been washed. I think it's out on the line. So back to Alexander and the monthly rentals. You can look around, and any given town you may find someone. The biggest problem is that people don't want to provide furniture and especially appliances for short terms. It becomes very expensive and risky because so we just had this happen that someone rented in Leon, and now they brought in their own stuff. So it wasn't as bad as it could be. They went crazy and destroyed all of their own furniture, all their own appliances. Well, they destroyed their own, hence they went crazy. They didn't go like evil and destroy someone else's stuff. They just destroyed their own and then fled. Why did they flee? They didn't do damage to other people's stuff. They did it to their own. It was a very strange situation. But that kind of thing, had that happened to someone else's stuff, the damage would have been unbelievable because, if you think about a family who's renting a short-term apartment, it may be, well, let's just say it's a $300 apartment, but they're going to charge you $400 because it's fully furnished. Okay, great. So you're paying $400, but that $400, the margin on that, their profit might be $10 or $20. It's going to be very small because they have a lot of expenses. They have to pay for power and all these different things. And if that person who's renting it does some damage, destroys a couch, destroys a refrigerator, destroys your television, it could be a year of rentals or two that it's going to take to come up with enough profit to replace the item you lost in a single day. And if that happened 2 or 3 times, you could be looking at the lifetime of a rental not being profitable. So it's very difficult for short-term rentals here where appliances are such a significant cost of the rental units. And so when you don't own them yourself, you have that risk. So they tend towards longer-term rentals at very low cost, and then you provide all of those things, and if you want to ruin them, you can. And I have a friend who did a very fancy rental, and they had really fancy furniture. Each piece was many thousands of dollars. It was a beautiful rental, and they made it a total of something like 72 hours before someone had done significant damage to the brand new, really high-end, super sturdy furniture. And of course, they were able to, move on with life, and it wasn't completely destroyed. But it was a great example of, wow, no matter what rental you do, no matter how expensive it is, people just destroy things in rentals. And so that combination of how little it costs for real estate and apartments, how much it costs for appliances and equipment, and how transient expats tend to be when coming through this country, the combination just creates a super incredibly high level of risk for the people who rent the apartments, who rent them out, who let the apartments, and then it ends up being that people who want short-term apartments don't have access to them. So that's why it's really hard, and why hotels end up being generally the way to go, or Airbnb, where there's a lot of controls and stuff. Larry says, don't know. I knew him when he was living in the Dominican Republic 20 years ago. His site was very popular at one time. Yeah, I know the name, but I don't know how much I've spent time on it, Larry. But yeah, I'm just looking right now. He had hobotraveler.com. It's gone. Then he replaced it with andyleegraham.com, and that's gone as well. He apparently has a Reddit feed. Someone said, did anyone ever learn anything from Andy? Something weird. It basically looks like maybe he's just not active anymore. I mean, everyone at some point right? It's just expensive and difficult to maintain your websites and things like that, and you end up, um, I don't know. He's got a YouTube channel that's still doing stuff. Um, so maybe he's just decided that traditional websites are not worth the effort. I don't have one, right? So I mean, I do. I have over 100, but none of them for this stuff. So you can't get me in that way. So I totally get it. Like, who's going to go read that? We just come to YouTube. So he may have just decided it was not worth it. Now, when I look at his stuff, it's weird content. Half price hotels, send Andy to Israel, solar cells, quantum efficiency, pillow problems, philosophy of listening to lies for USA living too. It really weird. Um, Thumbnails of just blue with like super odd, weird stuff. Yeah. Interesting. So yeah, he doesn't look familiar. I just saw his picture. Anyway, I got distracted by that. When you take off your hat, you thought I was Brad Pitt. You know, that's the other reason that I don't take the hat off too much. I do get mistaken for Brad Pitt. Like when I go out, people like want to take pictures with me in public and stuff. It's not a good scene. So I just keep this on, and then people mistake me for Steve Buscemi, a very heavy Steve Buscemi. Patricia, going to put my toilet lid down right now. Yes, terrible things happen. And you know, okay, so this is the other thing is, so I never okay, I have a little bit of OCD, and I'm actually OCD. I'm diagnosed. So, but normally weird things. But one of the things that also drives me crazy is storing things above a toilet. I don't want to store stuff on the toilet. I'm not grossed out by that. Like I'm not a germaphobe by any stretch, but I do from time to time. I'm always the one who has to do maintenance in the bathroom, right? Oh, it's clogged. Oh, it's running and it won't stop. It won't flush properly. The flapper's broken. Whatever. I'm the one who has to go take the back off, figure out, make sure it doesn't overflow or whatever. That's always me. And if you're stacking everything in the universe on top of the toilet, then I either have to have a place to take all that off to, which there never is if you're stacking it there. That means you don't have a spot to put it. Or I'm going to pick it up and then it's going to fall in, and then it's not great. So I understand, keep a couple extra rolls of toilet paper on there, no problem. But in general, it is no, that doesn't make sense. And then worse is people who put like towel things above the toilet. I tell you, every time I'm in a place that does that and someone leaves the toilet, someone drops a towel into the toilet, it blows my mind how everyone isn't just like, wait, we should stop putting things into the toilet, but they're not. I don't know. I'm just like, I don't understand the degree. This is my thing. I will like play with every cat, every dog. I will walk in public. I'll run my hands along railings. I'll go upstairs. I will be out all day, and I don't care at all if I'm going to eat with my hands and not even wash them. Like, I don't even care. My kids are like, go wash your hands. You've been out in public all day. You touched a dog you don't know, right? Not like my own dog, of course, that's fine. But like, you've been touching animals everywhere you go, because that's what I do. And they're like, that's disgusting. Go wash your hands. But I'm like, I don't care, right? Like, I'm as far from a germaphobe as you can really get. But even I am like, I don't want things that I have touching and falling into toilets. It just seems like a weird thing, given how avoidable it is. And yet, most people I find want to wash their hands incessantly all day long, which is probably better, right? I'm not saying that I'm a good example in this. And my kids make fun of me. They're like, if we drop food on the floor, Dad's like, no, don't eat that. What are you doing? And then I'll eat it because I don't care. But most people will just wash their hands and be like, oh, germs everywhere. And then as long as it's not a toilet, the moment it's a toilet, it's like free game, just like whatever. It just, I don't know, it blows my mind. Jillian, man after my own heart. Yes, close the lid. Yes, number 2, realtors. Realtors aren't so bad in like North America. is still pretty bad, but like the whole mechanism doesn't make sense. I come from an industry, I work in IT, where we have an entire industry like that as well, where people call themselves MSP, managed service providers, and they're not. They don't even work in our industry. They're actually salespeople. Their job is to sell you things. IT's job is to stop those people from selling you things. But they claim to be IT, and so the majority of companies are like, wait, I can get a guy who lies to me about being IT, and I don't have to pay him, and he makes all of his money by screwing me over, but I don't know when it's happening? That sounds fantastic. That's like standard American business. Realtors are basically the same thing. I don't want to pay a professional to help me get my house, but this person promises to do the job, even though I'll pay them to not do the job, and then we're okay. Like, it's really weird. Summer Live asks, can you flush toilet paper in Leon or downtown? Real simple answer, if you're in Nicaragua, you can't flush toilet paper. If you can flush toilet paper in Nicaragua, it is never by city, it is never by jurisdiction, it is always that you're in a hotel or whatever that has very specifically dealt with it themselves. So if you're in like the Hilton Princesa downtown, Managua, you can flush toilet paper there because it's the Hilton Princesa, right? But they're not flushing it into the Managua sewage system. It's going into their own holding tanks, and they're having trucks pump it out and drive it somewhere that can process it. That's how that's being handled. And I've been a hotel owner. I know that is how you handle it, right? So I've had a hotel where you can flush toilet paper, and all it is just being held somewhere, going into a truck, and then being driven and thrown in a field, right? That's just what's being done because there's no public septic system in the country that can handle toilet paper on any scale. If you have an individual house, you can install your own septic system and make it able to handle anything you want. No one is going to do that unless you do it. You're never going to buy a house where someone has done that. So either you build your own, or you go to a hotel that's like pumping it, or has a grinder. Like, that could happen, but I don't doubt that is common. Or you're just going to have to live without. It's just the way it is. Same thing, honestly, I was downtown Guatemala City. I was in Belize. None of them are flushable, right? Basically, south of the U.S., good luck. It's extremely rare you're going to get flushable unless you're in like a super inclusive resort kind of thing. Gargondale says, hey, Scott, do you know until what time those public buses run at the Managua Uca stop? So they don't have an official time to the best of my knowledge, but they stop somewhere typically between 6 and 6:30. Anytime I go after 6, I tend to miss them, but some people have luck as late as 7. That's what I know. How far are you trying to go and when? Brent says, thanks so much for covering my questions in the most recent vid. Oh, you're welcome. I remember doing yours, but I can't remember which ones were yours. Summer, sorry. It's in some parts of the country, in most of the countries here, and all of Mediterranean Europe is the same. They don't have a lot of space in the ground. It's really hard to deal with. The U.S. is kind of unique, in Canada, that they have very, very little really shallow coastal zones. So the number of places where it's like really hard to deal with is a very small percentage of the country. And so the ability to put just tons of septic in the ground is really, really good. But here, we're very constrained throughout most of the world, really. And it's just impractical and expensive to flush toilet paper in many circumstances. And so once places get used to not flushing it, it just becomes a thing. Don't flush it. And what's happened, and what I think is happening everywhere, now I'm just getting on my, we'll call it a soapbox, but it's more of a package of wipes. But the thing that's happened in a lot of the world is because, so in the US, there's kind of a movement towards wipes as just being like a little bit more sanitary. But it causes a lot of problems because the septic systems were built for toilet paper, but not wipes. They're a lot more extreme. But in places that aren't flushing toilet paper, they're able to go to wipes, and they don't even have to do the flushable wipes. They're just doing standard baby wipes. They're cheaper. They're hardier. Like it's actually way better in a way. And so when you come down here, suddenly like everyone's got wipes in the bathroom. Like, that's just a thing. Like, you provide wipes like you do with toilet paper, and it's just absolutely normal. Everyone does it. And it's like, I mean, maybe not people in really, really poor areas, but like if you're going around dealing with expats, dealing with, nice homes, you don't see it in hotels, but like it's just super common. Like, it's very funny that it's like that. Now, we are in a zone where you do get some amount of bidets, very few, but they do exist, more than in the U.S., but not much more. But that is a certain level of popularity for that here, because that solves a lot of the toilet paper thing. And that's the same thing. Like, why is it popular in Spain and France and Italy and Greece? Because nowhere in those countries can you flush, and they're really sanitation conscious. And so the combination is they want to have really good cleanliness with really low waste, and bidets are the answer to that. So I'm surprised more people aren't doing that here, but I'm excited to see more happen. Now, that said, there are areas in Italy, and definitely here, like in Leon, if you're on municipal water, they cut off the water sometimes. Well, if you're going to be based around bidets, you cannot do that, or it doesn't work, for obvious reasons. So that would be a big problem. So you'd have to have the toilet paper wipe system as a backup under those circumstances, at which point I think people are like, why would I invest in that if I can only use it half the day? That was a lot about toilet paper. Jillian says, hey, Scott, do you know if there are any dog boarding facilities in Leon? Yeah. So Dr. Jorge, it's not like a dog boarding facility, but he definitely boards dogs at his clinic right downtown. And if you have dogs like mine who have severe separation anxiety and cannot sleep alone, he does sleep with them in his bed. So my dogs like staying there. They like Dr. Jorge a lot. And when he's not around, his parents sleep with my dog. So they make sure that my dogs stay snuggled even when we're not around. We almost never have to board our dogs there unless they're sick and being boarded for illness, because we always have people that stay in the house with them, because my dogs are insane. But yeah, that's absolutely an option. Gargandale says, thanks, landing in Managua at around 5 p.m. and trying to make it to Granada. Was wondering if it was a long stretch making it to the bus stop versus taking an Uber. So we don't have Uber here, so that's off the options, right? Jillian says you can flush wipes. There are flushable wipes. They're called flushable, and they will go down the toilet. I know of no city in the United States that will tell you it's okay to flush them, but the wipes themselves claim to be flushable. Every city has reported that they're destroying the septic systems, and please don't. Larry says, I have a residency. That was very out of context, Larry. What do you mean? So best not to flush them. But yes, in the U.S., it is very common that people flush wipes, and the wipes claim it's okay. They're supposed to biodegrade quickly. They do not, and cities are showing like the huge equipment they have to bring in, like bulldozers and stuff, to get the wipes out, because they're completely destroying the storm drains and stuff. Dog boarding. So Gargandale, there is no Uber, so that's just off the table. If you're landing in Managua at 5 p.m., you're going to have to go through immigration. You're going to have to go through customs, aduana, and then you're going to have to get a ride to the UCA station. So that combination generally would take you more than 2 hours, at which point I do not believe that there is any chance of the UCA bus being there. However, once you're getting in a taxi to go to the UCA station, honestly, it's not going to be that much more to go on to Granada. I mean, obviously the bus is going to be way cheaper, but I don't know that it's Larry, when you say scroll up, I'm not getting those things. I got his site was pop. Oh wait, we take off your hat. Yeah, that's all I get. I don't know why they're not coming. Wait, you have Uber in Esteli? Are you serious? We don't have them in Leon or Managua. What? Like actual Uber? So anyway, I need to spend more time in Esteli, obviously. Yeah, I don't think there's any way you can make the bus. Now there might be a chicken bus later, but the problem is that the airport is like out to the east, and you just want to go down to Granada, and to go to the UCA on kind of the west side downtown, it's a hike. So you're going to get all the way out to the UCA. Now, if you're at the UCA, if you're downtown, yes, UCA's fantastic. It's going to zip you through Messiah to Granada, and it's a really good ride. But if you are, I'm checking this out right now. Our taxis here in Leon are really good, so we don't have to worry about using Uber or anything. But that would be amazing if we actually had Uber here. Larry says, bought an ATV 2 weeks ago. Hugely frustrating and extremely hot. Don't register a vehicle in April. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm literally bringing up Uber right now to see what happens. No rides. No rides here. How do you? It doesn't say that it's not available in country, but it doesn't have anything. Um, yeah, yeah. That's definitely April's the time to avoid everything. Can I please talk about relationships in Nicaragua? Wait. So hold on. That's what he calls himself. Oh, he calls himself Uber. That's not an Uber. That's like his name. Like it's just a taxi named Uber. Well, no wonder. Yeah, that's not an Uber. If it's not in the Uber app, it's not an Uber because the whole thing that makes it an Uber is the credit card and security tracking of the Uber app. Yeah, I've got taxi drivers that I just call, and you use InDriver and stuff, but yeah, we can't use. Even in Mexico, my Uber was very tough to use, but in Guatemala City, it works great. Have a residency we taught in April, earnestly. So obviously relationships is a really broad thing. Can you narrow that down as to what you're looking for? 4-day process for everything. Alberto Pavon is moving to Nicaragua. Oh, I love. Someone copied my style there. Hey, Scott, how you doing? I'm good. It is good to be back live, and we got a good number of viewers too, with good average view and a lot of people watching. A restaurant called him one day for us, and we've used him all the time. Yeah, I've got a couple taxi drivers. Living here for a long time, you got a couple taxi drivers that we always use, and just I use them and go to the airport all the time. That's normal. Any good weed in Leon? Honestly, I don't smoke, so I think the answer is no. From people I know who do smoke, I think that people are looking for it from much farther afield when they're looking for it to be good. If they're just looking for some, there's definitely some available in town. But if you're looking for it to be good, this may not be the place for you. I am the last person to reasonably ask for good information on that, so I know that's surprising. I seem very much like a guy who would probably have a lot of weed, and personality-wise, I am. And that's all cool. I'm not like a anti-weed. I'm totally pro-weed and everything. I have my vices, including being a workaholic and drinking a lot. He says when he only has water tonight, but I felt like a beer and didn't find one. But I do not need any extra vices, so I avoid them. I do not smoke tobacco. I do not smoke weed. I do no drugs at all. I do drink coffee. I do caffeine. That is my one thing that's not alcohol, and that's kind of it for me. I would be a problem if I did anything else. Oh, private car that doesn't look like it. So we have taxi drivers who will do private cars when we want to do long trips. Yeah, that's. I'm going to come back to you, just because I can go through these. Dude, you are funny. Have a friend coming from the UK to stay with me indefinitely. She can fly. Let me just real quick also. So I actually don't do weed. For real. But weed is illegal currently in Nicaragua, so you do want to be very careful about that. Generally, if you are a tourist or an expat and you don't get problems with it, you're generally okay doing weed. Don't do it in public. Don't do it where the cops have to ignore you. But, other than don't be stupid, pretty much, you're going to be ignored. Do not do it in someone else's establishment because they will be forced to report you because they'll get in trouble if they don't. So don't put them in a position of having to do something. But basically just don't be stupid and you'll be fine. If you are a local, don't smoke weed. It is not worth it. It does send you to jail. There are really serious talks about Nicaragua becoming legalized. So there's really good hope that that is happening soon. I think it would be good for the country if they do logical laws with it. But they tend to be pretty smart about things. And the country does not have the endemic drug problems that a lot of other countries do. No one in Central America has really strong drug problems with internal consumption. So Nicaragua's lucky, just culturally, it's pretty good. But there are countries to the north that have some pretty endemic problems. We don't have that here. So having legalized weed probably won't be too big of a deal. However, we do fear becoming a drug tourist country, and so that has risks. So there's some reasons why they're considering whether or not to do it, but it is looking like it's very likely to be legalized. Nicaragua basically has extremely few laws restricting what you can do. So having things that say you can't smoke weed goes against their general trends. They don't like being that kind of country. So it makes sense that they would remove it. Jillian has a friend coming from the UK to stay with me indefinitely. She can fly in with one-way tickets, Gatwick, Miami, Managua, if she shows a photo of a Tika bus to CR next month, right? So there's no requirement whatsoever when flying into Nicaragua to have a one-way ticket. The problem that you're referring to, that she would need to have something, is 100% corruption of the airlines. It's extortion, and it is illegal if she's going through Gatwick, or it would have been if it was in the EU. I do not know what protections the UK provide. The US provides none. So coming through Miami, they are simply allowed to kick her off the flight for any reason whatsoever. So if they don't do it for that, they can do it for another reason. Each airline is different, but it is always denying a flight that Cherry paid for. Nicaragua has no onward requirement. So if the airline is going to kick her off, they will simply make up something she doesn't have, say she has to have that. She can produce something else. They'll just come up with something else she has to do. When you're dealing with a fake requirement, there's no way to predict what they're going to do. I've had people come into, it's all just a lie, right? So really funny. We love you. Thank you. You're the best for your caffeine vice. Best. Oh, you are in the best place for your caffeine vice. Yes, I am. Watch the Nicaragua episode of Locked Up Abroad. Breaking the Law Isn't Worth It. Oh, I've never seen that. Is that on YouTube or anything? If you got a link to that, let me know, because I would like to see that. But I'd also like to see if it's real. If it's, at some point, I will go to a prison and talk to people. I'm not worried about doing that. We were at Ometepe. We bought weed from a guy from Canada. Yeah, a lot of the weed is from foreigners. That's just the way it is. It was hilarious. Wow. Just remember, Nicaragua has no onward requirements under any circumstances. Nicaragua allows you to stay. It doesn't make sense to have an onward. It is Costa Rica who requires an onward. And the problem we find with some of the airlines is they'll fake the Costa Rica requirements as well. So Spirit. So first of all, I've never known Spirit to enforce that because I fly Spirit and I've never been asked for one. Let me just check. I just flew in on Spirit in the last few weeks, and they did not have any return trip thing. Spirit says under certain locations may require a return trip, and when you fly into Nicaragua, it is not one of them. Yes, it is true. Make yourself a Tika bus ticket with Photoshop, problem solved, because it's all fake anyway. However, I don't know any airline that accepts the buses. They all only accept their own airlines, because that's why they're doing the requirement, is to sell extra tickets from themselves. National Geographic Channel, so Disney, yeah. Music or hey, good to see you again too. Got it. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to Eminem. Can I find a good wife in Nicaragua? So, that's a very tough question to answer. So we don't know anything about you or what you would consider a good wife. Is it easy as a foreigner to date in Nicaragua? The answer there is probably yes. Nicaragua is a very outgoing social culture, so going out and meeting someone for dating under normal circumstances is as easy or easier than in many other countries, because it is completely socially acceptable. And this sounds weird to say, right? But it is very normal to go out, go to a bar, go to a club, go to a music event, and just strike up conversations with people and meet them. There are places where that's not normal, right? Like, so I grew up in the U.S. If you go out to a bar in the U.S., like the idea that you could just walk up to a person, any person, right, and be like, oh, I find you attractive. Would you be interested in my phone number? Maybe we could go out sometime. In the U.S., that's very nerve-wracking because there's so many circumstances in which that is considered offensive or not invited. Right. So the idea that you can go talk to someone, anyone, that has not pre-arranged for you to talk to them, generally is still fine, right? But it's not as welcome as it should be. And it's a really bizarre problem in the U.S. It really does cause a lot of problems. Here in Nicaragua, the idea that you would walk up to a random person at a bar, at an event, on the street, and just be like, hey, do you want to get dinner sometime? Call me. The response is, oh, thank you. Right? Like, it's a very, like, I've never heard of anyone having a negative response. Of course, the negative response might be, I'm not interested, sure. But it's never, and I'm angry with you. It's always, oh, I'm flattered. No, I'm not interested, but thank you. Right? It's a completely different thing. So that there's this huge cultural acceptance of that. The whole thing makes socially interacting much easier. And it doesn't have to be in a dating context. It can be in oh, you're an interesting person, we should get a beer, right? And that is very, very easy as well. It's also very funny that even as a man, and old and not particularly attractive, walking down the street, I will get catcalled. It is so completely an open thing where, so this is a huge difference, and there's a reason why catcalling is so negatively perceived in places like the United States, because in the United States, everything has distance in vehicles and is closed. Everyone is closed off from each other. So the idea of seeing someone go by on a far sidewalk or in a car or construction workers on a building, seeing someone, that's not real, but like, what they do from the movies, and it's like, and you want to whistle or something and get someone's attention. It's like, so what was the point of this, right? Like, I understand that they're not necessarily trying to be impolite. I'm not trying to, but it's a bizarre interaction in America to be like, I'm going to make noise to get your attention based on I'm acknowledging your attractiveness from a distance. Like, that's weird. Like, it is weird, right? But where does it come from? Well, it originally comes from, to the best of my knowledge, places like Nicaragua. And in Nicaragua, you're never in these really far situations. You don't see people going by on cars. You see people on bicycles and on motorcycles. You see people on the sidewalk nearby. You're close to people. And here, when people catcall, it's not what it is in the United States. It is not, hey, I'm far away and I just want you to turn your head and acknowledge that I'm saying, hey, how you doing? Right? That is not what's going on at all. If you catcall in Nicaragua, that means you are actually hoping that the person will stop, turn around, and either wait for you or walk over to you. Of course, the polite thing is for you to walk over to them, but what if you're, stuck somewhere and you can't? And it is actually an invitation for an interaction to exchange numbers. For real. So if it's a completely different thing. It is actually a public, like, I don't want to go to a bar and meet someone. I don't want to, like, I walked past you on the sidewalk and I said, oh, hey, let me give you my number. And that's a completely acceptable interaction because it's an actual attempt to make contact, and people really do it. And you see it all the time. It's crazy how different that is than the U.S. That shows just how much the concept of social interactions are different here. So say Nicaragua has not gone woke. I would say it has not. I must have missed something. Good to see you again. Got it. Nicaragua's full of good wife. Just going out. Just go out there and talk. Yeah, really. I captured minds. It's not just easy to date because people are very social. There's other factors. Can't go woke if you're broke. Hey, Scott, when you get to Nicaragua, would you like to drink a Tonya? Would like to drink a Tonya with you. Greetings from H-Town. Hey, Nika man. We talked earlier today about getting a beer. Yeah, when are you coming down? You said, 25 years since you've been in Leon? I think it's time to hop a flight. And if H-Town is Houston, there's direct flights here now. And if you're not doing a direct flight from Houston, then catch the Spirit flight, Houston to Miami. I know it's out of the way, it takes longer, but it is $68. Yeah, check that out. Colin says, I've dated there extensively. Women would like to become more woke. You just got to put your foot down and tell them you're not into that and you're good. Never heard of that really coming up, that there's like a movement in that direction. I don't know, right? But that's what I love about Nicaragua. So old, fat, bald guys still have a chance. Well, this one does. Walking down the street, like it is hilarious. Like, I mean, I'm not saying it happens often. That would be pretty extreme. But if I'm walking through the middle of the city, it is absolutely possible that someone will try to grab my attention as I'm going down the sidewalk. It is truly not what I'm used to. Adon is here. How you doing? Is this your first time on? That is cool that you're here. Have I gone to the casino in Leon? Is it similar to other casinos? So I have not. I need to do an episode about the casino in Leon because this one is supposed to be a good one. So my business partner, Paul, pretty much lives there. He's there 6 or 7 days a week. He likes it a lot. He's very happy with that as a casino. He is at this, he's a professional gambler. He's been pro in a lot of different things. He's there like a lot of the time. And goes there for food, goes there for the air conditioning, goes there to see his gang, goes there to gamble. Like it's a big thing. He's very happy with the casinos here. So there's remember, there's a lot of casinos in Leon. So a lot of them are going to be awful, like absolutely awful. But the good one is supposed to be pretty good. But I've not been inside. I am once again without additional vices, doing my best not to add on any because I have plenty. Gambling is one of those things that I find, and this is funny when you find out that I work in the gambling industry, it is mind-bogglingly boring to me. I find absolutely no interest in it, so I never go into casinos or anything like that. But I'm hoping, and Paul is hoping, that we're going to be able to coordinate because he goes to the casino so much that we're hoping that they're going to be willing to work with a time when they're really slow to let us get in and film and just have them control everything so that, because obviously you can't film an active casino. There's problems with that. But if we can potentially get some footage and really show what it's like and bring you the nice casino experience here in Leon, that would be super interesting. And it is cool. Like, so the casino it's downtown, and it's right across the street from La Perla. And I had to park out there recently. And we only have one car. And so Paul wasn't with me. I was just taking the family out to dinner, but I had the car. Normally he takes the car. And I drove by and I parked the car down the block. I dropped the family off. Right next to the place is a little Il Capriccio, is a little Italian restaurant that we really like a lot. It's just a guy and his wife. He's Italian, she's Guatemalan, and they have this little Italian restaurant. Go check them out. Support them. They're fantastic. They only do a couple tables a night. So we parked, and I dropped my family off, and I walked by, and the security guard at the casino has no idea who I am. He recognizes the car, and he's like, you could have put it in the casino. We'd have taken care of it. I'm like, oh my gosh. He comes here way too much that his car gets VIP treatment in that part of town. Nika Man says, planning on going back to my home in Nicaragua and finally retire and start a business there. It was here 2 years ago, but Leon is in your mind to invest, or Granada, can't decide on both. Honestly, there's stuff in Granada I'd love to invest in too. I get it. I like living in Leon better, but Granada has a lot going on. Buddhist, not Buddhist, says, one of my favorite things to do is going to the mercado where the female vendors refer to you as amorcito always makes me smile. Yes, that is definitely true. The women in the shops will definitely flirt and give you attention. Of course, hoping that you buy something, but it's still very, very real. Yay, first time. This is the Don who lives here in Leon, so everybody say hi to him. El Nika Man, you mentioned about flying from Houston to Florida, then Nicaragua. Mind explaining how that would go, since from Houston is a little expensive to fly to Managua. Yeah, so I mean, there's nothing weird, right? Yeah, Luke says United from IAH to MGA direct, but the cost of that, Luke, is very high. That's why we never do it. Plus, United just treats you poorly. But Spirit does, and just go to spirit.com and do Houston to Managua, right? You don't have to do anything special, but it has a stopover in not Miami, but Fort Lauderdale, right? So it's not MIA, but whatever that other, I can't remember Fort Lauderdale's code, but you fly into Fort Lauderdale, you just do Houston to Managua, and it is cheap. One direction $68 if you look for the right days, and then the other direction's like 105 or 103, something like that. We just priced this out. This is what I'm going to do to fly into Houston, because my cousin lives at IAH, not in the airport, but right by it. And then my wife's family all lives by Hobby, right? So Houston's our city. And when we priced it out, it was $68 to do it from Managua. So you just do Managua to Houston, and it will take you by way of Fort Lauderdale, and it's crazy cheap. And get yourself a Spirit credit card and get all those points added up. So for me, because I live here, Spirit is so far and away the way to go. I got the upgraded, so you can get the free one, but I paid for the pay for Spirit card. So we get some huge number of Spirit points every time that we fly. And we flew in 1 month, which obviously it was a month that we were flying, but in 1 month of having the card, we flew enough that we got a free flight, just a free flight out of having the card. So obviously that's only worth so much, but it was definitely worth paying for the card for the year to get that flight. So it worked out really, really well. The other option, if you're willing to take a bus, is you can take the bus to San Pedro Sula. That's a serious bus ride. From San Pedro Sula, which has a bigger airport, they fly direct to Houston on Spirit again, and that one's $38, but the bus ride kind of ruins all of it. So, yes, holy cow, just search Spirit flights and it comes in at $100. Seriously, Spirit is the answer so many times, like nearly every time. So this doesn't work in South America, but in North America, if you are flying anywhere that involves Nicaragua or most of the region, the secret is Spirit. That's how we're all doing it cheaply. Yes, you may fly a little bit farther. Yes, the seats for some people are less comfortable. For me, they're more comfortable. So that's subjective. But I know a lot of people don't find it as comfortable as like American or United, but it's not long flights. These are really short flights. And if you use Spirit as your primary and Avianca as your secondary, yes, I've had terrible times with Avianca during COVID, but they were good when I flew them recently. And of course, if you're doing like local things, like Tag is good, like there's stuff, but Spirit is the answer. It will completely change your game as long as you're able to fly into the U.S., which most Nicaraguans are not, so Spirit's not available to them, so they're really screwed as far as good flights. That's one of the reasons. So Americans fly for like 1/5 the price that Nicaraguans fly in most cases. And yes, Boeing 800 says Spirit has good service to Colombia too. They do. I believe Spirit goes all the way to Lima. I will double check that. But they do go to South America, but they don't go into South America. They do the border cities, which is fine. That can be super useful. I like, when possible, not to fly all the way to the United States and then fly on to wherever I'm going to go. Just like that's not fun in a lot of ways, but wow, Spirit's map is like super tiny. That's really weird. Let me try loading that again, see if it gets any better. It does not. It is just a super tiny map. See if I zoom into it, it's a little bit better. Okay, so yes, they do fly as far as Lima. So if you're starting from an origination city somewhere, there we go. Let me just get Fort. So, and everything is connected through Fort Lauderdale if you're looking at international flights. So choose Fort Lauderdale from their map page. Here, I'm going to send this to everybody so you can check it out. And basically, you can go all over northern Latin America very easily on Spirit, and it will change your life. It really will. They don't go to Venezuela. I know it looks like that on the map. They're going to Aruba, I think. Yes, they go to Aruba. They go to all over Colombia, like all over Colombia. They go to Panama, San Jose, Managua, Tegucigalpa, San Pedro Sula, San Salvador, Guatemala City. And then, of course, Monterrey, but not Mexico City. That's one that throws people off. But they do go to Cancun. Spirit comes in at $100 if I get the credit card, or Savers Club comes in at $69. Paid $900 with American Airlines last time I flew to Nicaragua. Yeah, that's what it's like. So I will probably use Spirit and just fly a little bit farther next time. I'm gonna have to check what it takes for me to go to Peru, but like, so I went. Most of you know, I went to Bolivia last year, and to do it, I took a bus all the way to San Jose, and then I caught LATAM. And I love flying LATAM for sure, but that one, they don't give me a credit card, so that's kind of a negative. But having to take a bus all the way to San Jose doesn't really make my life that much easier. And I don't get like bus points or anything, and it takes a bunch of time. I'm glad I did what I did. It was a good trip, and that was all fantastic. But if I was going to do it now, I would almost certainly take Spirit to Fort Lauderdale to Peru, and then take LATAM wherever I'm going to go inside South America. But that I can connect to LATAM at a number of different points with Spirit is the answer. And it looks like under normal circumstances, we as Americans who are living abroad and using the foreign earned income credit can still pass through Fort Lauderdale most of the time, not always, most of the time without causing problems with our tax status. That's not 100% of the case. Check with your accountant. Make sure you do all your math yourself. I'm not advising you on tax things, but look into it. It is worth checking. Yeah, so I have the credit card, which gives me the Saver Club price all the time. So yeah, and be warned, your luggage allowances on Spirit are lean. So plan your luggage very carefully. But if you're really shopping around, you can get some deals that are so epic and with a little bit of flexibility in flying Spirit. So my quick story is, when we lived here almost a decade ago, we flew in on United. We paid all this money. We came in on United. We had a return ticket. At some point, we were living in Granada, and an emergency came up, and we had to get back to Houston. We had to get to Hobby, but it didn't really matter where we were going. We just had to get back to Houston. We had to get back fast. And so we called United, and we're like, hey, we got tickets home. We have a bereavement situation. We need to be back ASAP. What can you do for us on a bereavement rate? We don't need a bereavement flight. We need a bereavement change of date on our existing ticket. We've already paid full price for the ticket. It's a bereavement. What can you do? And they literally said, they didn't literally say. They figuratively said, screw you. We will not change the ticket, but we will sell you another ticket for today. Point blank, zero accommodations for bereavement, zero accommodations for already having a ticket. Absolutely zero. And we're like, no. And so we're like, what do we do? And I called around, and we had never heard of Spirit at that point. This is a decade ago. And I'm like, well, I just searched online. I'm like, who flies out of this airport? Found Spirit, called Spirit and said, what can you do? We have a bereavement situation. We got to get back. And Spirit said, we're really sorry. We don't have bereavement rates. All we can do is offer you a full price flight up to Hobby, which was better than IAH for us. That's where we were going. And we can get you on tonight. And I think it was ahead. I think United, we were trying to get the next day, and Spirit's like, we'll get you in the middle of the night, because their flights are in the middle of the night. And our first reaction is, well, we would rather give Spirit a full price for not screwing us over than United, who's literally screwing us over, and again, figuratively screwing us over. And then Spirit's like, that'll be $100. I'm like, wait. United was going to charge us over $1,000 for a bereavement flight for changing our tickets, and your full price is $100. No wonder they couldn't give us a discount. I have never intentionally flown anyone but Spirit since then. When I'm in North America or coming in and out of Managua, there's times I've had to fly other places because Spirit just doesn't go where I need to go. But if Spirit is available, they're the only ones I fly, because they took care of us when we needed it, and United couldn't possibly have cared less about something that they could have been a good airlines on, and just decided that was not something they cared about. And so, yeah, that was that. We were done with and most of the American airlines I've had not as bad of experiences. Delta I've had far worse, but in many cases the big American airlines have been not very good. American, I should say, has been almost completely quite good all the time, but is often more expensive. I did fly them a bit recently. They were fine, but were they Spirit? Not really. I mean, they were good enough. I'd fly them again. Avianca did well recently as well, so not a problem using them. And Avianca is important because there's just a lot of places here that you can go to, because Avianca flies to Managua to San Jose, and that gives you a whole bunch of options. I am looking at the Fort Lauderdale to Lima, and it looks like that's not something they offer, but I'm not sure why. Maybe I have the wrong airport. I'm looking into what I've done wrong with that. Where does it go? They don't tell you where their things go. Well, that's really weird. All right. Well, I'm gonna try to figure this out. I'll say Miami area. Maybe that's what I'm doing wrong. No, they seem to not have flights to Lima anymore. Well, that's really a bummer. Let's see what Bogota's like. There we go. Bogota from Fort Lauderdale, $160. That's not bad. One way, obviously. But we can get Bogota one way for $75 out of Costa Rica. That's almost worth the bus, because then we don't, because if we do it from Miami, we got to fly Managua up to Miami, so that's going to be $100. Then Miami to Bogota, that's $160. So it's $260 total. But if I take the bus, which is like I think $60 to San Jose, then the flight is $75. That's $135 all the way down, not $260. So that's half the price. And it's more time, but it's not a ton more time, because you got to go to the airport, wait, fly to Miami, wait, fly to Bogota. Well, if I'm taking and that's all out of the way, so the flight to Bogota is longer. If you take the bus to San Jose, yes, the bus takes a long time, but the first 2 hours of that are driving to the airport here. The next 2 hours of that are waiting at the airport here. The next 2 hours of that are flying to Miami from here. The next hour of that, the next 2 hours of that is waiting in Miami. Maybe more, depending on, that could be a long time. So you're already up to like 8 hours worth of that bus ride. And then if you finally get on the plane after 8 hours, it's still 1 hour extra to go to Bogota. And so you're already 9 hours through that bus ride. And you're in the U.S. waiting, and all the Medellin, just $44? What am I doing wrong with my life? Hold on, let's go look. Now, I'm looking in the other direction. I'm looking, coming from down here and flying up, just because I was trying to do a search in a more useful way. But let's take a look. Medellin is coming up at $150 in the other direction. Often the going down is cheap and the returning is expensive. Like, that just seems to be how it is. Okay, so $150 though in the southbound direction. Let's pick one of those. We're gonna go down June 5th. You're gonna go check it out. And then where's our returns? All right, let's 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm seeing returns for, there's the $44. Look at that. Look at that. So $44 one way, and it looks like about $150 the other. So for $200 round trip, you could do, now it's only the Miami to Medellin portion. You still got to go from here up to there. So it's you're looking at least $200 per direction, but that's not bad for getting all the way to Medellin. There was talk that Spirit was going to start up their Managua to LA route. True? I'm going to say, yeah, it's probably true that there was talk. But it's not true that they're going to start up the route. They've actually curtailed the route out of Managua rather than expanding. They found that they just weren't filling the planes, so they're not flying as often as they were. They're still very much flying, but yes, the downside of Spirit you're seeing is that it takes time to arrive. 14 hours Houston to Managua. It does. It takes a lot more time because you're going through Miami. So you've got about 3 extra hours of flight time plus the layover in Miami. So that stuff does add up. But, there's a decent Burger King in Miami. Go get a beer, go get a veggie Whopper, and relax a little bit. And think about all the money you're saving, right? It gives you several hours to kick back and go, I can just make it rain because I'm saving so much money on my flights. The other thing to consider is possibly Avianca. I do not know if they will do that path. But generally, the good airlines do not offer, if you go to discount airline sites, often they're missing the good flights, the good airlines, and so that can be really misleading. That's the downside. P Savvy, which is a lot like P Diddy, but a little bit more savvy. Like Avianca to Nicaragua from Miami because they get you to Managua late morning or early afternoon, so you have plenty of time for processing, and car rental seats are small. Oh, yeah. Avianca has the smallest seats ever. Like, if people make fun of for Spirit, but they're not taking away your seat space. They actually take away your seats. The seat is smaller. The physical seat has less back, less bottom, more air around it, which I like because you get more airflow all around you. So I actually prefer it. What I really hate is seats that are like you're all encased in a thing and like you can't move and there's no air. You're just like like I hate it. Why am I like a sardine? I'll just take this plastic away. And so I think Spirit does a much better job of that. But other than that, like you have plenty of foot room and everything. But Avianca, the seat in front of you is right here. I actually have to take my glasses off because I can't focus. It's so close. It drives me crazy. But I'm looking at Avianca one way, and it is quite a bit more expensive than Spirit. Between like $264 is kind of what you find one way. Now that's to Houston, not Miami. Right, that's what we were talking about. So that's a difference of $200 compared to Spirit, and it still has a layover of 5.5 hours, and so the total time is still pretty close to the Spirit one. It's just that your layover, instead of being in Miami, is in San Salvador, which is a way better layover, but it's a lot of money just to change to have a better layover. There's a good site about sleeping in airports. I don't know which one of these you'd want to sleep in. No one wants to be like P. Diddy these days, in case you haven't heard. I don't know anything about P. Diddy. But yeah, that's probably... Basically, everyone famous is in trouble these days. Flying on Avianca to Nicaragua in May. Awesome. Where are you coming from? You are. Adan says, yo recientemente usé Spirit para ir a RD, Raleigh-Durham. Por Miami, primera vez, bastante satisfecho. Yeah, it's really a good airlines. It really is. They called him P. Did it. Yep. I do my best to stay out of the American news. Well, I do my best to keep myself out of the American news, yes. But I do my best to I look at it, especially, famous people, especially when I don't really know who they are. I try not to get too involved. Okay, Adon just sent me a photo of myself in the video. Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, perfect. RD means, Dominican Republic. Through Miami to Republica Dominicana, of course. RD north of Miami is Raleigh-Durham, which is where I've flown from Florida more often. I need to go to the Dominican Republic. Coming from Montana, I reached out to you on your IG about possibly meeting up. I appreciate all your content. This is my first live. Did I respond to you on my Instagram? I try to. I normally respond to everybody, but it is easy to lose people. Especially Instagram doesn't do the best job of making it clear who you've talked to, who you've not, who you've missed, all that kind of stuff. So I try to make sure that is kept up with and that I'm not missing things, but it really is easy for me to miss things. I haven't come up with a really good channel for everything. I wish I could get everyone into Nika Abla because that's the easiest for me because I have it open all the time and it lets me like kind of organize things a little bit, but moving everyone in there is hard. Wait, 6th of May, 6th of meeting up. Wait, coming to, no, I gotta follow. May. Okay, I think I found which Instagram chat is yours because UR does not correlate with anything, but the coming in May does. I'm a sleuth here, putting together my different channels. Nika, man, this guy's 100% Nika. Yes, sir, you told me you would be around. I reached out again the other day asking a particular situation would work out. You didn't respond to that one, but you know I'm busy, not offended. So yeah, you said coming in, yep. Going over there. Da da da. I did. Montana. There, it says it right there. Yep, that's definitely you. I will respond to that when I have a chance to read it. There's a bunch of information in there I did not see yet. Yeah. But yes, I did get it. Yeah, I should be around. So 6th of May, that's just a couple of weeks. As long as I'm not flying back to Houston to get my license at that time or suddenly having to go to Belize. I am being recalled to Belize, but I don't know when yet. So just waiting to hear about that. But hopefully this time going back to Belize, I'm going to get a few days, have a little bit of time to actually do some stuff and get some more footage. Like, I hope you guys like the Belize footage that we did, but hoping to do quite a bit more. We're going to go out to the Keys and do a little bit of touristy stuff and head around. And it won't be my first time, so I won't be like, what do you do in Belize? And it won't be just one meeting into another, which is what it was this time. Literally every free moment was there for a meeting. And then I got a layover in Guatemala to have a few beers, which was fantastic because I love Guatemala. But yeah, hopefully. And soon, I'm hoping that when I go to Belize, I'm going to try driving because it's only 17 hours and the flight is 20. So why not drive it? Tell me to be around. Hey, Scott. Hey, RC. Luke says FLL, that's Fort Lauderdale to Managua. Red Eye on Spirit is clocking in at $42 on Wednesdays. Okay, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's worth hunting around. There are some amazing flights to this region if you know where to look and can go through the right places. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time. Belize looks beautiful. Belize does look beautiful, as does the hat. It's weird, right? It's so different than this region. It's funny to think how close it is, and so wildly different than what we have, what it's like here. However, when I got there, I think I said this on the channel, maybe I didn't. My taxi driver picked me up, and it was all arranged. Like, I didn't have to worry about anything. This was really nice, right? I don't normally get to travel where someone else is arranging everything for me. So this was just super, super easy, and I didn't have to deal with anything. I got in. I got picked up I had a driver waiting for me, which I never do. It makes me feel all fancy and stuff. Of course, then his taxi didn't have working windows, so I mean, it was only the fancy wore off pretty quickly. But so he was driving me, and he's like, "Oh, my girlfriend is from Bluefield, so I know Nicaragua a little bit." I'm like, "Oh, have you been there?" He's like, "Yeah, absolutely, I've been there." And he was an older guy, so he's like, "I've traveled a lot," and he's like, honestly, it looks exactly like here. And I'm like, I haven't been to Bluefields, and I know Luke is asking when I'm going to get out there and do that. But it's really interesting that someone in Belize is like, yeah, Bluefields, it's exactly this. So I'm really interested to get out to Bluefields and actually follow up on that and see how close it is. But it was what I picture of Bluefields and Bilwi. Like, that is basically the same kind of structure and design and all that. Seemed like what that would be. So definitely interesting. But that was my first time in Belize, so it was definitely cool for me just to check it all out. It's, you really notice Belize, coming from Nicaragua, right? When a lot of people come to Nicaragua, one of the things I hear a lot is, you notice the poverty when you come to Nicaragua. And having lived here for a while, I feel like I don't. And that's maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing. But a lot of times the things that I used to think of as being really obvious poverty, now I realize are not. And there's a lot of places that I'm like, oh, that house is, maybe that doesn't look so good. Now I'm like, I bet that's a really nice house, or at least it has potential to be a really nice house. Like, my expectations of things are different. I know that there's beautiful things hidden behind walls. Like, you begin to understand what you're looking at more. And as a Nicaraguan, as someone who lives here all the time and is used to what it looks like here and what it's like, going to Belize hits you instantly that you're like, oh, this is so much poorer in what it looks like, at least compared to Nicaragua. Like, the poverty hits you as a Nicaraguan pretty quickly, that it's they don't have houses like Nicaragua. They don't have, the infrastructure like Nicaragua. A lot of things are just flat and it's warm, so a lot of things are in decent shape and work pretty well. But it's you sense the economic struggles and disparity more when you end up in Belize than Nicaragua, and it really does hit you. Now they have really expensive real estate. So they kind of have the Costa Rica effect where there are so many expats, so many tourists that the Belizeans can't afford anything. And so because all the property has sold really cheap and now belongs to foreigners, they don't have control of the good parts of their country and no real path towards an economy that's going to be able to do that. So it's a very tough situation, I think, that they're facing, much like Costa Rica, and that's really what we want to avoid in the CA4, and we're trying very hard to have safeguards about that. So that's something you notice, I think, very quickly, is that you're just like, oh, they've got some things they've got to work on. Nikki Man says, quick question, Scott. Do you get one-way trip to Nicaragua when you travel, or do you get round trip? Do you have to provide some proof of return if you get one way? I know I don't have to since I was born in Nicaragua, but asking for my wife, she's from Mexico. So someone just mentioned this. So it's up to every given airline if they're going to extort you illegally or not. The U.S. does not provide consumer protections like most of the world, and so it makes it very popular to run airline scams out of the U.S. because the airlines basically have unlimited power, and what are you going to do about it? In Europe, they will kick you off of flights, but you can sue them very effectively. So that lowers the risk of doing it in Europe. At least you have recourse, but always you have to be prepared to be kicked off of flights and fight them anytime they're going to extort you because of things like 9/11. All the airlines have used that to take away your consumer rights. So flying in North America is always risky, and that is just part of flying in North America. There is zero onward requirement ever in Nicaragua, and I say that there is an exception. The exception is after on the time you get your third extension. So you come in for 90 days, this is as a tourist, then you extend by 30, then you extend by 30, that's 2 extensions. On your third extension, under most circumstances, you will have to provide at that point an outbound ticket. Flight, taxi, bus, they don't particularly care. They just want to make sure you know you're going on what date, and they will check in on it. But that is the only time. There is never a time that Nicaragua is going to require that you have one coming in by boat, by car, by plane. They don't care because you can stay indefinitely. So it is never required. Someone mentioned that Spirit had said that they do require it, but I just flew in on Spirit and they do not, which they should not. I would be very upset if they did. I have never had an airline try to pull that on me, but I have heard of people having American pull it. I have heard of Iberia pulling it when flying into Costa Rica, and even with an onward ticket, they're just like, oh, well, we're not going to accept that onward ticket. And because their whole thing was just to sell their own airline. It was all just a fake extortion racket. And I know people who've lost thousands of dollars and are powerless to do anything, even though they had done everything right. The airlines are given the right to just lie, and how do you go after them? And how do you say they'll in an American court they have the power to say, oh, well, that's the law as we were told, or that's the law as it applies, that because you're talking about a foreign law. So it's a very difficult situation as ticket holders trying to say that this is something they just made up. So we're very much just vulnerable when flying. Okay, I will travel to make some paperwork to give my wife Nicaraguan citizenship since we are partially moving there. I don't know that that's possible. I've never heard of there being any path to Nicaraguan citizenship through marriage. That's theoretically, but I know people who are married to Nicaraguans, and it's never come up as an option or anything even on their radar that they could possibly move towards citizenship through that. That would be surprising if they are granting. I know it's not going to be automatic, but that there's even a path through marriage, I'd be shocked. Residency, she should have basically automatically. But residency, I don't know that the airlines will care about because, again, they're just making up rules. Citizenship, I understand why you'd show a Nicaraguan passport and they'd be like, oh, we're not going to mess with you. But residency doesn't exist outside of a country. So at the time that she's boarding the plane, she wouldn't be resident in Nicaragua. She's only resident in Nicaragua when she's getting off the plane in Nicaragua. So that's a weird little thing that, residency is just a weird thing. People think of it like citizenship, like it's this really solid system. Everyone is the same. It's recognized. None of that is true. So we have this problem here in Nicaragua that so you come in as a tourist, but you're a resident. Like you just come and stay. Are you a resident? Well, no, but are you? Kind of. And then it turns out under the tax law that technically after 180 days, you're automatically a resident. Oh, cool. Do I get any benefits? No, there's no benefits. It's just that technically the word resident now applies to you. Well, that's weird, but that's what it is. But this is important because at some point the United States asked us, "Are you a resident of Nicaragua?" And my wife said, "No, we haven't. We don't have a residency." I said, "No, that's not correct. We passed the 180 days many years ago. We've been a resident for a long time. It's not 180 days in your lifetime. It's within a period of time. But we did this and have not lost our residency since then. We maintain residency in Nicaragua. We just don't have the thing called residencia, which is actually permanent residence, not residence. But no one cares about residence. It's useless. It has no meaning, except I've been told by some Canadians so I've been told by other Canadians that this isn't true. But I've had some Canadians say, but we have to have residency because Canada asks us and treats us differently if we don't have residency. And the United States asked us, they didn't ask us in a we're going to use this sort of way. It was more of like a question. But to answer it correctly, we had to say yes. But why would we know that we have residency? It's just in a code somewhere that you automatically become resident. You don't ask for it. They don't tell you you got it. It's just part of the law. And so it's a weird thing, but it means that at 181 days, Americans don't care. But Canadians, if they do care for whatever reason, they can go back to Canada and say, yeah, I'm a resident. Here's the law that says so. Here's the paperwork that proves that I'm under this law and it applies. Right? They're able to do all of that. And whether they ever need to or not, well, that's up for interpretation, clearly. But the idea that you are a resident is so fluid. So I'm a resident of Texas and I'm a resident of Nicaragua, but I can also go apply for residency in Mexico. I can apply for residency in Mexico from Nicaragua and potentially be granted it. I could end up with 3 residencies and only have my place where I live be in a place where my residency is the least established of the 3. And it's very strange. But if you ask Nicaragua, are you a resident of the United States? No, I'm a resident of Nicaragua. Okay, but if you're in the United States, are you a resident of the U.S.? Yes, absolutely. And so, but if you're not in Nicaragua, are you a resident of Nicaragua? Well, according to the United States, I'm not. But the moment I touch foot in Nicaragua, I am. Right? So it's a based on jurisdiction of where you are at the moment as to how they recognize what thing you are and are not resident of. Whereas a citizen is a citizen everywhere all the time. Wild stuff. If you're married to a Nicaraguan citizen, then your spouse qualifies for a path of citizenship in case I am by birth. Well, I understand that you're a citizen by birth. I have looked at the citizenship stuff because a lot of people ask me about citizenship and residency, and I've never found a path to citizenship that includes marriage. I thought that I knew all the citizenship processes. I'm going to look that up because that's surprising. Yes, I just looked, and there is no form of naturalization that considers marriage for the path. Now, this is, I understand, Wikipedia, so it's not a direct, but it is the Wikipedia page for Law 761, which is the citizenship law here in Nicaragua. Generally, these are quite accurate, and they fully reference the law itself. So this is, naturalization, let's just read it, because this is interesting. Naturalization, so birthright, that applies to you, but that doesn't apply to a spouse or anything like that. Naturalization requires completion of an application of request that is supported by the requisite documents to establish eligibility, blah, blah, blah. Spanish language proficiency is not required. Applicants, unless they are from Spain or Central American Republic, the way that that's worded, that is, they actually mean the CA4, so El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. I do not believe that Costa Rica or Panama count for this. The term Central American Republic, I believe, is a technical term for the CA4, are required to revoke their former nationality and document 4 years of continuous residency in the territory. So, for example, if you were Salvadoran and you wanted to move to Nicaragua, you could live in Nicaragua for 4 years under your Salvadoran documentation, and then if you wanted to switch to Nicaragua, you could do so, but you can't hold another CA4. You can only have one of the CA4 at a time. If it's by naturalization, I do know people who have both by birth. For verification that documentation meets the legal requirements, it must be approved by Immigration Service. Naturalization includes for the minor children of a person seeking nationality in Nicaragua. These are open to foreigners who have established legal residence in the country for 4 years. So you have to have residencia, I believe, not what I am resident. I don't think my time has counted, or else I'd be up for citizenship soon. This is also important because people have said to me that they want to get citizenship from abroad, apply for it from abroad, and have it so they can start the clock ticking on their citizenship. None of it which makes sense, because your residency does not count towards citizenship, and it is your established legal residence that has to be 4 years, not your residency. Foreigners who have had legal residence for 2 years and who are originally from Spain or another country with a reciprocity agreement with nationalization with Nicaragua are married to a Nicaraguan or have Nicaraguan children. Okay, so depending on how the commas work there, you get a 2-year discount under certain circumstances if you're married. So that's not a path, but it does shorten it for you, in theory. And then foreigners with special skills or significant monetary investment leading to blah, 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 and nationals of any other CAR who do not have to meet renunciation requirements or residency. Okay, but the thing that's important here is that my understanding is none of these give you a guaranteed path. All of these lead to the country having this really extreme situation where they like vote on you. And so, I know people who met these requirements 20 times over and finally got it, but they didn't get it by meeting these requirements. They got it by presidential decree. And so that's from having talked to people who work in this space and people who have been through this process, it's the requirements are so significant, and you'll notice that it says that naturalization is open to, but not given to, right? These are the requirements for which you to start the process of requesting it. And so it can be, just be prepared that citizenship easily isn't on the table in any meaningful way. I'm going to catch up with everyone. Martin says, hey, Scott, here in Sabaco, nice to see LiveStream. Thanks for all you do for us. Great information. All the best. I love Sabaco. That is a cool little town. If you're married or are married to a Nicaraguan citizen, then your spouse qualify for a path to citizenship. In this case, okay, we already said that. Take a look at the link. No link came through. I think a lot of those, when people say link, like, it trims a lot out from the chat. If we include things. Martin says, Scott, how long do you have to be in Nicaragua before you can apply for residency? You can apply on day one. You can apply as soon as you want. The question is, why would you want to? It's just, if for some reason you felt it necessary to have residency, yeah, I know people who apply right away. You can get it in a few weeks, depending on the situation. Can you have dual citizenship? Yeah, absolutely. Nicaragua offers dual citizenship. It is especially popular with places like Spain because of the colonial status. A lot of people have dual U.S. and Nicaraguan, but those are generally by birthright. It is very difficult to get it. If you're an American, you can't get a Nicaraguan without giving up your American, but the other way around is generally okay. So there's a lot of different situations, but like I know people who are dual Nicaraguan and Honduran, right? Like it's not a big thing. You would generally never want to be voluntarily only a Nicaraguan citizen. That would be pretty rare unless you really don't want to travel. But the Nicaraguan passport is not a powerful passport, and so it has so many limitations on travel and stuff that it's really something to be wary of ending up with that as your only passport. So that is kind of how that works. In reality, you pretty much, it is very rare that you would want to seek citizenship in Nicaragua because of the penalties that come with it. If you already have it, fantastic. But if if Nicaragua was like, "Hey Scott, would you like Nicaraguan citizenship? It's just a gift. You can have it." Well, yeah, obviously, like that'd be super cool. But if they're like, "Hey, would you like the citizenship? But here's the deal: you have to give up the citizenships that you have elsewhere." That's asking me to give up a lot. And while I'm not open to switching my citizenship, that's a big thing, right? To shift your citizenship. Having dual is amazing. You always want more citizenships, right? They basically just more feathers in your cap. But switching citizenships is a big thing. Now, if you're Nicaraguan, would you want to switch to something else? Maybe not. But you get used to who you are and what you have, and it can be very fearful, especially for those of us who depend on it for banking and travel and income and stuff. Then it becomes very difficult. And Nicaragua would not want to do that to me, right? So even if they're watching this, which they are, right? So the Nicaraguan government watches my show. So hey guys. And that's right. That's normal. The U.S. also watches. And if Nicaragua wanted me to be a citizen, right, they would probably have a discussion because that's what they do. Like it'd be weird if they didn't. And they'd say, "Well, should we give him citizenship?" And they'd say, "Well, what would happen?" And they say, "Well, he'd have to, we can't just not have him give it up because everyone else who had to give it up, they'd be kind of pissed. So he would have to give up his other citizenships." Oh, and what would that do to him? Well, it doesn't hurt him, but he would have some travel problems. It's a travel show that he does. We don't really want to do that. And a whole bunch of the things he does for Nicaragua are powered by the fact that he's a citizen from somewhere else. Ooh, right? Nicaragua would be like, that's not good for us to make him become a Nicaraguan. Like, that doesn't work. Does Nicaragua want me to have residency? Yeah, I think so. They'd be like, hey, this Scott character should have residency so he can talk about the process, if nothing else, right, on the show. And I'm getting my residency. It should be not that much longer. We always say that. There's always a reason why it takes longer, but we're in no hurry. Like, it doesn't cause any problems. So that's fine. And I talk about that a lot. Why? Like, there's just no need to be in a hurry. I know people who've been here for 8 years and don't have their residency yet. No problem at all, right? Now, they've tried. They filed. They're doing their stuff. It just sometimes there's delays. It's not a big deal. The process and the results of giving me residency, I think, are good for me. Minorly, like I don't particularly care, but there's some things I'm looking forward to, and it's good for the country. I think the country will be like, yes, this was a good decision. But if they were to give me citizenship, I think they'd be like, I think that was a bad idea. I think the results would not be necessarily positive, at least as it currently is. And I don't know where because I have a multi-citizenship. I don't know exactly how getting Nicaragua interacts with all the different ones. I don't know all of Nicaragua's treaties. So there are scenarios where I'd be okay with getting a Nicaraguan citizenship, but in general, it is not something that you spend a lot of time seeking after, simply because normally the reasons that you want citizenship somewhere is because you can't get residency. Well, that shouldn't be a problem. And if you want the passport. And while I would like a Nicaraguan passport, it's definitely not like this, like, I just got to get one. Like, where am I going to be able to go with that I can't go now? Well, it will be easier to go to Bolivia. Okay. It will be easier to go to Venezuela. It will be way easier to go to Cuba. Okay, great. Like, that's cool, but I can go to those places now. It's just not as easy. So I don't have a big concern about it for me. And I think almost all, and compared to most people, I'm pretty doubled down on the Nicaraguan experience. So if I'm in a position where I'm like, I just don't see why I would need one, most people are going to be in the same boat of just it just doesn't add something. Every time I talk to someone who says that they want one, their reasons for wanting one is always something that it doesn't give you, or does something completely different than they think, and they don't know how it works, and so they're imagining something else and then saying that they want it. Martin says, living here and building a house in Dario to live permanently. That's really cool. How, like, in the city of Dario, or like out there, like in the country around it? Like, that's pretty cool. You guys are very quiet tonight, I have to say. We've been on for over 2 hours. So we're going to read a little bit about this. Ciudad del Rio is a town and municipality in the Matagalpa department of Nicaragua. It is the birthplace of poet Ruben Darío and the legendary guerrilla leader Eden Pastora. Previously known as Matapa or Chocoyos, Ciudad del Rio is located 90 kilometers or 56 miles from Managua. I've driven past the entrance, but I've never actually been in town. In prehistoric time, the area was probably part of an ancient lake. Interesting. All right. 54,000 people now in the city. That's big. It's bigger always than I think that it is. Ruben Darío, who is basically the William Shakespeare of Spanish, was born in what is now Ciudad del Rio, but he didn't live there for very long. He grew up in the Darío house on Ruben Darío Street here in León. I also live on Ruben Darío, and I used to live directly behind his house, like 2 streets back, but straight behind his house. So it's pretty cool. And that's where his museum is. So if anyone's going to be here in León and want to check out the Ruben Darío Museum, it is on Ruben Darío in the Ruben Darío house. Everything in León is called Ruben Darío, which is a little bit confusing. The Ponaloya Road is Ruben Darío. And Axel Foley is here. How you doing, Axel? Have you owned any business in Nicaragua? Yeah, I own businesses in Nicaragua. I have for a long time. I don't recommend it, but I do. It is not my source of income. Let's put it that way. But I am about to be a resident by investment, and that was not a big plan, right? But it's also asked. You're not the first to ask. News on Messiah. It is. No real news. We heard there was anticipation of activity. Honestly, Messiah is never something we care about. It is just so background. Like, people are like interested in things, but it's so not important in the real world. It's like the 4 something earthquakes. Everybody is like, I didn't feel it. Did you feel it? Nah. Why did Karen says from the channel, she's like, if you didn't post on here, none of us would know there were earthquakes. And she lives here. Axel says, how long does it take to get temporary residency? And is the process cut and dry? Temporary residency is very cut and dry. It happens on your 181st day, and that's it. You stay for 180 days. You come back in doing your border run to Costa Rica, and on the next day you are a temporary resident. It gives you absolutely nothing. There are 0 benefits to it. It's not acknowledged. No one talks about it. We just before you got here, we were talking about it. It is completely automatic and completely secret. So the only value we've ever found to it is if a foreign government demands that you state if you have residency in a country, then you can say, yes, I'm resident in Nicaragua. Other than that, it has nothing. So the real question is, what is it that you're looking for? Why do you want temporary residency? The thing that most people ask about, just to head off what may be discussed, what most people are looking for is permanent residency or long-term residency. That can take just a few weeks or it can take many years. We were discussing that as well. It all depends on whether you're doing retirement or income-based or investment. And there are advantages to the investment one. You get a more flexible system. You get more favors and looked on more favorably and much more likely to be stable and blah, blah, blah. But it's all really minor. It's, in a country where everything is a discussion, everything is, who and it's a softer system. It doesn't have these hard rules and guidelines on everything. Being an investor is potentially better because you're going to get better treatment places. You may get more access to things, but they aren't cut and dry what they're going to be. You don't know. You're going to just have to find out as the process goes, kind of where you fall in the system. So, do I recommend that you come out and look for a resident investment residency? No, not generally. That's not what makes sense for most people in any way whatsoever. Most people are looking at retirement or income, which are essentially the same. They changed a few words because they ended up making one that didn't make a lot of sense, so they had to adjust it and just tweak it a little bit, and so that's how they did it. Those I know people who someone on the channel did one, and I think it took them 3 weeks. Right, like very fast. Now they had their paperwork ready; they were very anxious to do it, but it is generally not very important. It should be under normal circumstances. I know everyone's got a different situation, but for normal people, it should be quite low on your radar. It just isn't a big deal having your residency. It doesn't do very much for you, so that's why it's pretty easy and why we don't talk about it very much. I'm just gonna wake myself up. This is a very cold washcloth sitting on my table. Put my glasses on before my hat. Did I miss anything that people were saying? No, I don't think so. UR says, is it necessary for us to exchange USD for Cordoba? No. In some videos, you talk about most places taking both. Yes. If we do exchange, what would be a good recommended amount without having too much cash? Is the USD taking a beating in Nicaragua like in Mexico? Okay, so let me answer Axel's first because that's really easy. So the US dollar is not taking a beating in Mexico. That's a bad way of looking at it. The US dollar is simply the US dollar, right? Like it's like the euro, they're basically stable, and the world kind of adjusts to it. It's not 100% true, but if the US dollar, given how markets work, if the US dollar is doing really well, which is not always clear what that means. If the US dollar is strong, what you will see is all other currencies in the world dropping in comparison. And if the US dollar is weak, you will see all other currencies coming up in comparison. That is what it looks like when the US dollar is taking a beating, for example. What is happening in Mexico is not that at all. What is happening in Mexico is that the Mexican peso is extremely strong. It is currently the strongest currency in the world. And so it is not that the US dollar is taking a beating in Mexico. It is that the entire world is taking a beating by Mexico, or we just say the peso is incredibly strong. So the peso has gone up independently. Everyone else has not fallen. It's not like that. So it is very, very specific to Mexico. In no way will it be reflected in any other country whatsoever. That said, even if the US dollar was taking a beating in Mexico, the US dollar and the Cordoba are linked, as is the Balboa from Panama, or the Belizean dollar to the US dollar. Now, they're not all linked in exactly the same way, but they're linked in very similar ways. So if the US dollar gets stronger or weaker, the Belizean dollar or the Balboa or the Cordoba all get weaker or stronger with it automatically. There isn't any possibility of the US dollar being strong and the Cordoba being weak. They are strong or weak together. That is a decision that the national or the central bank makes when they design their currency, and it's a way some currencies work. Now the Cordoba is 37 roughly to the dollar. Outside of internal trading, it is possible on the open market, or if you're just getting money on the street, to have the exchange rate vary by small amounts, but it can't make huge changes because the central bank locks it, and so you're guaranteed that it won't drift too far off of what is the guaranteed rate. It just doesn't make any sense to do so. So you'll never have something like that happen. But the peso is not tied to the dollar in any way. They were at one time the same currency. There is actually one currency that split, but that was hundreds of years ago. And now that's why they have the same dollar symbol. That is not a dollar sign. That is the peso sign. We just call it the dollar sign after all this time. But they were both based on the Spanish real. So no, the Cordoba is always the same. So that's one of the reasons why it's not necessary to exchange. However, if you're in Belize, for example, even though they are linked, you can't use the US dollar and you can't get the US dollar. It is a single currency country. It's just that their single currency is tied to the dollar. Panama's single currency is interchangeable with the dollar. The Balboa and the dollar are the same thing, just issued by two different countries, but they have a one-to-one all the time. And so you will see US currency and Balboa just mixing around on the streets, and certain denominations don't exist in the Balboa Balboa, they don't want to bother making it. Here we have the 37 to 1 Cordoba, which will change its exchange rate over time, but it's very predictable. They have specific dates that it changes by specific amounts. So it's very unique in how they handle it. Nicaragua does a lot of things differently than other places. They're a country that is not afraid of thinking outside the box or actually tackling problems outside of the box. So it's very interesting in that way. And some things they do, you're like, why? Why would they do that? And other things they do, you're like, why doesn't everyone do that? This is one that's a little bit weird, but it does work really well for the country. And it's primarily because we're a small economy, very close to the United States, and no matter what's going on between Nicaragua and the United States, our fortunes are essentially going to be tied, because unlike Mexico, we don't have a giant economy that is able to take on a manufacturing powerhouse like China independently of our position with the U.S. All right, so back to UR's question of, so what should you do? So the first thing is just don't bring that, under normal circumstances, tell me if this doesn't work for some reason, but under normal circumstances, you don't bring a lot of money with you. So Nicaragua is a dual currency country, so U.S. currency is completely acceptable to use everywhere, so is Cordoba. Cordoba generally works better for you. It's just smaller denominations. It's what everyone's used to dealing with. It's what everything's priced in normally. And so it makes sense to use Cordoba for a lot of reasons. If you're only here for a day or two, then yeah, use US dollars, whatever. But if you're here for any amount of time, switch to Cordoba. But you don't do an exchange, right? If you need Cordoba, just go to the ATM and get Cordoba. And if you don't need Cordoba, go to the M and get dollars. Like every ATM gives you both. The exchange is locked, so you're not getting ripped off one way or another. Just use what makes sense. But what you don't want to do is be exchanging back and forth, because you have to pay every time you do that. And if you do have to do that, yeah, if you have to for some reason, go to the exchanger on the street in front of the banks, give them cash, they'll take care of you. You can even pull up in a car, do it out your window. Like it works really well. But you need to avoid doing unnecessary exchanges, because that's how you lose money. So then the question is, what is a recommended amount without having too much cash? It really depends on how you spend. I do almost nothing with cash. I'm credit card heavy. I did a video on this. I like using my Sapphire Chase card, my Spirit Points card, my Hilton Amex card. All of those give me points, one thing or another. I recently did a trip. I'm going to talk about this, but I did a serious vacation almost entirely on card points. It was amazing. Flights, hotels, tickets to things, food, all kinds of stuff was covered. And what wasn't, we spent with the cards and got points. Right, but when we go out to eat here, when I'm ordering food online, whether it's Pizza Hut or I'm going shopping at the grocery store, whatever, I'm always putting it on my credit card so I get the best exchange rate and I get money back or points or whatever. So I'm paying less because I'm using a credit card all the time. Plus it gives you some security, plus you're less likely to get pickpocketed and you don't have to carry around a bunch of cash. So I can go weeks without hitting the ATM. When I do hit the ATM, I take out the max so I don't pay any extra fees, which is about $800 in Cordoba, so do the math, whatever that is. And I just max that out and carry that. I don't carry that around, right? I take it home, I put it into a safe, and then carry around, I don't know, maybe between 4,000 and 8,000 Cordoba just to have some money so I can do some things. And not have to worry about running out of money if I need whatever. But it really depends what you do. So I'm big on credit cards, but I do, obviously, I'm not going to never, I could take out 100,000 Cordoba and it'd be like, when are you going to spend this? I don't know, definitely not this month, but by next month, it's possible I'll go through that. It all depends. I think that, if you're here for any length of time, just hit the ATM, take out the maximum amount, which is only several $100s. You'll never get above $800 in a transaction, and then see how long it lasts for you. So, Nikki Man, yes, I'm getting an error that it may be frozen. There's some buffering problems going on the YouTube side. We'll give it a second. Mine says I'm streaming a bit much. I stream on high bandwidth because of the Fuji. Typing that into the chat, but I'm watching my own video, so I'm streaming out, and then my feed actually shows the video coming back in. So if it's smooth, it should be smooth. Okay, Axel says you can hear me. And so, I mean, it should keep the audio going even if the video locks up a little bit. And I can always go to the still image, and that'll drop the bandwidth a lot. So we should have it clear up in a second, and then that'll just give it a second to buffer. You guys should still hear me just fine. It's cut its bandwidth now by more than half. It's coming down to a third. And we'll just go back to video and it'll pick up again. So doing a single between $400 and $800 withdraw in Cordoba, not in dollars, and then and just see how long it lasts you. And if you're at like the end of your trip and you're like, I've got a bunch of Cordoba, I'd rather not take this home with me, then just start using that instead of your credit card, and you'll run through it. It's not hard to go through a few $100s when you're on a trip, right? Go to restaurants, grab a beer, get something to take home, get some souvenirs, whatever. Go to a fancier restaurant than you normally would do, and ta-da, it'll be pretty good. So that's basically how I would approach it, unless you have a really good idea on your spending. Yeah, UR says, I wasn't sure how many places take credit card there. I don't know where I heard that. Maybe I made it up. So there are a lot of places that don't take credit card. Like, be aware that like street food, which of course is a really important thing to do. I'm going to go get tacos at a stand. I'm going to get burgers on the street. I'm going to do asado because that's the thing. Yeah, those places are not going to take credit card. So have some cash, be ready for those fun experiences, and definitely eat street food and stuff because it's fantastic. But if you're in the major cities, Esteli, Managua, Matagalpa, Leon, Chinandega, right, Riva, San Juan del Sur, Granada for sure, we take credit cards. Most places, out on the beach, in the city, all the fancy restaurants, Pedidos Ya. Now, you're probably not going to do that as a tourist because you have to have a phone number here. But you can do that, like you can go get a phone number. But you have to have a phone number to be able to do Pedidos Ya. But if you have an apartment, for those of you who are looking like, I'm going to stay for a month, I'm going to get a short-term rental, whatever, I'm going to Airbnb for a month, Pedidos Ya is fantastic. Go install Pedidos Ya on your phone. Get a local number, Tigo or Claro. It's only a couple bucks. The whole experience is good for you, right? The whole wait, $12 for an entire month of super fast internet? Is this real? Yes, that is real. $12. That is how much it costs for a whole month. And, do that whole thing, set up your Pedidos Ya and be like, I'm going to order some food online and see what this is like. And yeah, if you're here for a long time, you're going to be like, the restaurant selection gets a little bit weak. But if you're not here for a really long time and you're here and you're just checking out the Pedidos Ya system and seeing what you can order, it's amazing, right? I know it's just Uber Eats or DoorDash or whatever in the United States. So it's not going to blow your mind. I didn't know there's technology like this. It's the whole, I get to do this in Nicaragua, and this is, the same kind of technology and experience that I'm used to in the United States and other places. But this is a tech built in Nicaragua. This is just done here. The entire region gets this out of Managua, and it's really easy to use and really cheap. So you go on to Pedidos Ya and you're like, I'm going to get a burger. I'm going to get tacos. I'm going to get pizza. While I was doing this, we had a pizza delivered to the house. My kids will be like, I want a smoothie. Can you send us? Yep. Boop. Smoothie comes to the house. And it's fast. It costs $1, $1.50 at most. Yeah, I don't know if it ever goes over $1.50. For delivery, they come right to our gate, and now, the Pedidos Ya guys all know our guard, and they're like, yeah, I've got a delivery for Scott, and the guard will watch and let them through the gate, and they'll watch them come down to my door and then hand it to me, and it's, if I need to, my security guard can pick it up, and the map shows how close the driver is. So all this stuff is on Uber Eats, but this is all built and run here in Nicaragua, and that for so little money you can get food delivered here is amazing. And Julian says used Pedidos Ya while on medical bed rest. It was excellent service. It's great. They deliver in little motorcycles, so even when traffic's bad downtown, they're able to do a lot of stuff. So it's very, very it's very cool being able to use it. And in Managua, it's really good, right? Then the selection is huge, and you can just live on that. Here in Leon, you'll definitely be, after a while, okay, there needs to be more restaurants on here. But it's certainly part of the Nicaraguan experience. And I think my take on Nicaragua is so much that it's we're not a big tourist destination. Oh, we're having the buffering problem again. Guys, let me know how it looks or sounds or whatever. But it's still coming through on my end, so it seems like it's okay. Um, so much of the Nicaragua experience is, um, the culture, the lifestyle. It's not going out and seeing a big museum. It's not going out and doing some big tourist attraction. We have a few, and yeah, go do them, and that's cool. But so much of what makes Nicaragua interesting is this living here and experiencing the life and kind of seeing the world from a very different perspective. And part of that is going to the grocery store and doing some real grocery shopping. And this is true anywhere. Like, it's my favorite thing to do in Spain, my favorite thing to do in Italy, my favorite thing to do in Ukraine. Go to the grocery store and check out the different yogurts, the different cheeses, the different sodas. Do that stuff. Figure out what it's like to live in an apartment. Figure out what it's like to order food and get delivery. All those little things. And it's really cool. Rob Stonator says, here it costs a lot of extra money to order food to your house, not just the delivery fee, but they also inflate the actual prices of the food or even more for even more profits. So yeah, it is important. The prices that you pay in Pedidos Ya are, as far as I know, always or nearly always higher than what you pay when you're not in Pedidos Ya. It does increase the price to the best of my knowledge, but the prices don't increase to like a big number. They're still very reasonable, but then the delivery fee. When I was in the U.S., every time the delivery fee was like this big amount of money, and it's like, just the delivery. Like, you get your menu and you're like, okay, that's what dinner's going to cost. And then the delivery fee tacked onto that was a lot. And you're just like, and then the tip on top of that is a lot. But if you're, Buddhist, you know where I live, and they deliver here. So you're like next door. So yes, they deliver to you, I'm sure. Fairly off the beaten path. They deliver into the barrios and stuff. For those who don't know, Buddhist and I are neighbors twice. It's distance, not off the beaten path. That's the issue. If you're like down on the beach, they won't go that far. But if you're in the city, yeah, they'll go into all the weird little neighborhoods and stuff and do constantly. But here, like, the tip is so little, and I always go for the biggest tip. Like, it's $1.20, And let me tell you, they make an effort to deliver to our house every time. It makes a little bit of a difference, but yeah, very, very good service. And those things are it's so neat getting to experience just everyday life and going out to a restaurant, like going to dinner, going to places it's a cool experience. And that's a lot of fun and great. Go support those things. But very few people do that every day. And adding in cooking at home and grocery shopping and ordering in food and going out to get food and picking up food and street food and restaurants, you put it all together, you get a much bigger picture. And it's a lot more interesting to explore. And, for those who are living here in Leon as examples, if you've been out, everyone goes out to Sua, right? The famous Mediterranean restaurant here in town, and they're decent, although they changed their menu recently, so we stopped going. My kids are like, we don't want to go anymore. My wife's like, it was her favorite restaurant. We went all the time, and then they changed their menu, and they took enough off that we went, and we're just like, we don't feel like going anymore. And so it was our number one restaurant, and now it's not one that we go to. That happens a bit, but it's like people go to Sua all the time, and people go to Barbaro all the time, but there are completely different experiences that are worth going to. And I'm going to say one, and of course people go there all the time. It's very busy, but way out in a different barrio and completely different venue and not in the middle of anything is En El Vivero. And if you go there, it is this giant nursery, like plant nursery, and they do live bands all the time, and it's just this giant space and outdoors and really, really nice and totally not what you expect to find. And it's such a cool experience if you've never, like, their service is not always the best, but they have decent food, and definitely try out their mozzarella sticks. They have, as far as I'm concerned, the best mozzarella sticks in town. And I'm from upstate New York, so I'm really serious about my mozzarella sticks. Like, they're not the best. I'm certainly not writing home about them, but if you're here in town and you miss mozzarella sticks, that's the place to go. But going there and having the live music out in a nursery over a ravine with this big open space, and they have a lot of nice areas. Like, they've really done a nice job with the place. It's it's a very much like you're just not going to get this experience in the U.S. And it's funny because in some ways you could be like, this is actually kind of close to Rainforest Cafe because we're kind of in the rainforest. We're not really, but if you're there during the rainy season, it's sort of in a really green area of the city, and you add in that rain, and it's a little bit like an authentic Rainforest Cafe. You don't have to go all the way to Galveston to get that experience. Rusticite? Is that really what you meant to put? I know rustic in Sutiava, that's right in front of you. Is that the one? It's not a steakhouse, and you've got Duomo really close to you. When we do that mountain climb, you'll see what I mean. Oh, you want to deliver out on the mountain? Or just at your place. Like, yeah, we got to do that mountain climb soon. I'm back and got my gear. I'm ready to. Oh, Rustic. Okay. Rustic in Sutiava. Yeah, that's a nice place. I never think of them as a steakhouse. Do they call themselves steakhouse? They are a nice place. They have nice music, but not in the rain. When it rains, it's a problem in there. But that's very close to all of us. But yeah, Buddhist, I am looking forward to the mountain climb. I've talked about that a few times. I can't believe how many people, for the number of times that I've made videos about it and stuff, when I say I'm going to Cerro de Oro, that people are like, where's Cerro de Oro? I'm like, 1, just look at a map. It's on there. 2, look at my photographs. It's in there. 3, episode after episode where I've walked up to, onto, around, views of, sunset over Cerro de Oro. And 5, the number of people in this area who drive past Cerro de Oro all the time. It must be like, what is that volcano right by the road that I drive by all the time? Cerro de Oro. Like, we have a volcano in the middle of Leon and no one notices it. Like, I'm unclear why that is. And I think there's a second volcano. I think that the what am I trying to say? Now I can't think of the name of it. The old fortress, I think, is actually on a volcano. But because the fortress is on it, you can't really look it up. It's just the fortress. The what is it called? Fortin de Acosasco. That hill definitely was a volcano vibe, but it's such an old volcano that it's impossible to tell. What are gas prices like? My girlfriend is curious on what things are the same and what things are actually cheaper there. So gas is a little bit difficult to describe. So what we do here is we do much higher octane here than in the U.S. So U.S. is like 87, 89, and then 91 or maybe 93. And here it's 95 or 97. So you're getting a higher octane gas. However, they are ranked differently, so it's not as much higher as it seems. So it's a little bit complicated, but it is high octane gas for sure. And then we do pay more per gallon. It's not wildly more. It's not super expensive. So you will pay more per gallon than you do in the U.S. Even if you adjust the U.S. for the higher octane, we're still higher, but not very much higher. Ours is nationally set. So in the U.S., you pay different amounts by state, by station, by all kinds of things. Here, the price is the price. They can vary under certain circumstances, but it's all set by the government. And so they'll actually put out a thing like at the beginning of the month, and they'll say, in order to support the ongoing welfare of the populace, we have decided not to change the price of gas this month, right? It's like a little marketing thing. No price increase for you. You're welcome. And so they'll put that out so everyone knows exactly what the price of gas is supposed to be. And that's nice. You don't have to shop around. You just go to your local station every time. And, oh yes, everyone at Easter time, don't forget your Duolingo. We have plenty of time here. And I've not done this every single day. But not only do I have my streak, I'm trying very hard to max out my 3 quest points every day because I'm trying to get to the maximum quest badge and the maximum legendary badge. Those take forever. So the thing, though, that you'll notice is that cars here are tuned for higher gas, octane, for higher octane gas. And because of the way that the roads are and cars are and the way you drive and where you go, you will not use gas anywhere near like what you do in the United States. There must be an exception to this. And I had someone who was arguing with me that gas was really expensive here. And I'm like, how are you like, so I'm from, Texas. I'm used to really cheap American gas. And we spend, I don't know, 10% here what we did in the US, 20%. And I lived in Dallas, like I lived in the city. We didn't have to drive very many places. But every little thing was 20 miles, right? You need to we're going to go pick up some fast food. We would drive so far to go get the local fast food. It was crazy. Here, when we go to drive somewhere, we go almost nowhere, very slowly. So your gas efficiency, your fuel efficiency is super high under normal circumstances. And the person that was like, oh, I'm using all kinds of gas, I'm like, how? How can you go through that much gas? Well, it turns out that they were intentionally living really far away from somewhere using a super not particularly legal, like they had to do some extra work to get an antique, broke down old vehicle that goes through so much fuel and then drive it in really impractical things over and over and over again, so that they were doing tons of miles in a super inefficient vehicle. And then they were like, well, it costs more than the US. Okay, interesting. But under normal circumstances, here we drive very small cars that are tuned for higher octane gas. We get really good fuel efficiency. We never get up to what our US highway speeds ever. And our distances, even going from like Leon to the airport, is actually not that far. And so I was just doing this. So I'm looking at getting, for those who don't know, BYD is the world's largest maker of electric vehicles. And they make a new one called the Seagull that's supposed to be amazing. And so I'm really interested in getting a Seagull. They don't sell them in Nicaragua. They're totally legal. We just don't have a dealer. But Costa Rica has a dealer, and the dealer is in San Jose, which is really far away. So this is all the way across Nicaragua, and then the majority of the way across Costa Rica. It is a really far way away. And the range on the car is 405 kilometers. So I'm like, what are the chances I can drive it all the way home? Like zero. But how close can I get? And it turns out that the entire distance from San Jose to where I live in Leon, which is the far side of Leon, like I go way through Leon, 415 kilometers. It would only be 10 kilometers short. Now, it might make it, that would be a stupid risk to take. But if I was to buy one and drive it halfway, charge it at night, and then drive the other halfway, I'm only going half the range each day. Like, that's so close that, like, covering two countries, only 400 kilometers. Like, this is a single day drive anywhere. It's a single day drive to go from here all the way to Belize. That's crossing Nicaragua and crossing Honduras and crossing Guatemala and then crossing Belize. Like, it's nuts, right? But that's just not that far. So like when we go to Managua, it's like 50 miles. And everyone's like, oh, all the way to Managua. And you're like, seriously, if there's not traffic and you can open it up, all the way from Tipitapa on the far east to all the way to the far side of Sutiava, 76 minutes, right? Like, okay, yeah, normally we're just sitting in really slow traffic, and when you're going 40, 50 kilometers an hour and you're creeping along on the highway, you're not using very much gas. So you have a completely different experience and relationship with fuel here than you do in the United States, and that's a big deal. So yes, gas here does cost more. That we did establish that after a lot of back and forth discussions. But it is higher octane, but still more expensive here. But it's not bad. And the lifestyle just means that your fuel costs are almost guaranteed to be half or less. And that's if you're driving, right? Yep, do your Duolingo. David Legrand, would you recommend traveling to Nicaragua in June? Yeah, June is very nice, just not April, right? That's seriously not April. The other 11 months are good. June will be in the rainy season, so I like the rainy season. If that's cool with you, then June will be perfect. Axel Foley, what are the top 3 Nicaraguan exports? Obviously, revolution, excitement, and judgment of other countries and their bad behavior internationally. No, that's what we're famous for, though. Our top exports, to the best of my knowledge, are sugar, agriculture, just in general, like fruits and veg and shrimp and fish, and possibly rum, actually, which is another sugar product. Those are seriously our big things. We are a major producer of gold. We produce a lot of wood, a lot of furniture, but by and large, Nicaragua is an agricultural exporter, with sugar being our cash crop. We also have very large exports of coffee, tobacco, and chocolate. But none of them come close to sugar. And when we do export them, often sugar is somehow involved, right? But those are our exports. We are an agricultural powerhouse country, also very high on our export lists. Surprisingly to a lot of people, is education. We are a destination for people from all over the region for universities. Not really high school, you don't really do that, but Leon specifically, so the joke here is that our leading export is revolution, but our real leading export is education. And then I was going to say power. We're a major power producer for the region. We produce power and supply it all the way up to Mexico. Certainly not Mexico City, but southern, like Chiapas, gets its power from here, not the Yucatan. A lot of people immediately jump to, oh yeah, the Yucatan must get, no. They're on their own power supply. I don't know where theirs comes from, but it's inside Yucatan, I'm pretty sure. If not, then it's got to be Guatemala. But Belize, I think, gets from Mexico or from Guatemala. I'm not sure. But part of Guatemala and Honduras and El Salvador and us. I don't know about Costa Rica. And then Chiapas and Mexico are all getting their power from Nicaragua. So that's a really big deal that we have so much power to export. And ours is super green, right? We've got hydroelectric. We have huge wind. We have huge solar. We have the ability of ocean wave, but I don't think we're doing that anywhere. We have... the big thing is that we have volcanic. We have multiple volcanic magma-based systems. So that is really, really cool. And a lot of people are like, wait, that's a thing? Like, yeah, that's a thing, and we have it. That is like nature's nuclear power stations. They're really cool. Are there major American, European, and Chinese businesses, for example, manufacturing plants and so on? Absolutely, yeah. We're not a big manufacturing country, but we certainly have them. Like here in Leon, we have multiple Chinese like vehicle manufacturing. They don't make the final cars, but they make parts like I don't know, carburetors. Something, I'm sure they don't make carburetors. I don't think anybody makes carburetors, but something like that is being manufactured here. And we have giant plants with huge parking lots and beautiful everything, and everybody wants to work there. Those definitely exist. The American and European businesses that are here tend towards agricultural. So, for example, Cargill is here with a really large presence, and they manufacture all kinds of stuff, right? Cereal and cheese and that kind of stuff. But mostly we're an intermediary. We don't tend to make final products. The countries that are really big on that are Honduras and Costa Rica. They are producing final processed food products in quantities that would blow your mind. That are big exports from those countries. But the ingredients that go into those things and the preparation for it, that's heavily coming from Nicaragua. So we are shipping raw materials, food materials, out to Costa Rica and Honduras. They're processing it, and then we buy a small amount of them back. We do also, especially out here in Leon, we're a massive producer of shrimp. And that's not harvesting from the ocean. We actually have shrimp factories that are making shrimp. Very, very large shrimp factories that actually ship directly to China. They go straight into the port of Corinto for export. You can't even buy it in country. But yeah, manufacturing is definitely, you'll see that around the country, but it's just not huge. Because of how much wind there is in Nicaragua, would it make more sense to invest in solar panels or wind turbines? I know you've mentioned electricity bills are cheap enough anyway, though. Well, they're cheap enough for some people, but it depends where you are and what you're doing. For some people, it's expensive, and for some of us, it's crazy cheap. Most every expat I know is like, how is my bill so low? And I have multiple places, and we're constantly like, how's my bill so low? So we're pretty happy with it. In general, everyone buys solar panel, not wind turbines. Maybe that's not the way to go. I don't know of anyone selling like personal scale wind turbines in country. I'm sure you can get them. Like, we can get anything here. It just takes a little bit more effort because you have to be creative, because there isn't like a store down the street to go to. But as far as which would make more sense, I mean, it completely depends where you are. But probably solar, right? Because we have a lot of wind, but we have unlimited solar as well. And the majority of the big power in the country is coming from wind. So if you're going to have wind problems, like the wind dies down, you'd probably want to be on solar. We do have a bunch of solar plants, but they're not producing the big power the way that the wind is. Just reading at what's going on in Ecuador. Ecuador's got a lot of problems going on, but Ecuador is under, like as many places, under severe drought. Bogota is under unbelievable drought, and they are unable to run their hydroelectric reservoirs, and so they are shutting off the power because they can't keep their plants open. Wow. So Ecuador is about to go to the polls, about following in the footsteps of El Salvador to shut down the gang violence, and that's going to be tough as they are about to lose power. That's going to be pretty crazy. That's hitting the country hard. A lot of problems going on in Ecuador right now, and Nicaragua and Ecuador have cut off diplomatic relations. So. A lot going on there as well. But yeah, probably solar, I think, Rob Sinator. Do I have a hotel and restaurant? Kind of. So we just I've had a hotel business. I do not have one currently. I do have a restaurant. And I will have a hotel. And I do have all kinds of things that I'm involved with to different degrees, but I no longer have a hotel and restaurant as people are thinking of them. Axel says, good night, everyone. Good night, Axel. I am getting pretty close to calling it a night, too. I've had a long day. We're coming up on 3 hours, which is not bad. I do like when we do 4 to 5, but need to be realistic as well. But we did have a really good turnout tonight, and a lot of good questions, a lot of good discussion. It's good seeing everyone again. It's nice to be back. We got to get back to doing this weekly. It's a lot of fun. It's cool having like our little hangout group. It's a lot like Paul goes to his poker group and has like his little gang that plays poker. Well, we've got our live stream group that does this. But you guys, so Jillian's done this, but the rest of you have not. I need you guys to do the videos. Like take some nice, just grab your phone and do some nice videos of yourselves and send in questions so I can pop you in video form like Jillian did into the show. That would be super cool if we had more people doing that. That would be a lot of fun. It is 10 o'clock here, so it's a good time. So that means it's midnight on the East Coast. Definitely time to start calling it a night. But we're going to be doing this more soon. And I have multiple, and I had to not upload tonight. I mean, my videos are uploaded. I'm trying to get ahead. I couldn't upload because I didn't want to interrupt the stream. That would definitely do it because I send up a lot of data. But yeah, we have no pending questions. Ecuador is in a disaster, and probably a good time to call it a night. So go do your Duolingo. Make sure you get that. Go order your potatoes jaw. Get some food. Now it's probably too late for that. And what do we got going on this weekend? I've got a private party. I have 2 private parties over the next 2 days. So I'm going to be hiding and doing that. I will be down in Las Piñatas if anybody is trying to spot me. But mostly I will be hiding at private events. So I will see all of you guys from the show tomorrow. Thanks for joining me. Have a good night.